In the Turquoise Kingdom, the Adventurers Guild stands as a bustling hub. Behind the counter, a young man with light hair contemplates the job listings, focusing on the role of Tamer. He mutters to himself, surprised by the choice. Inside the guild, the light-haired man explains to a black-haired visitor that Tamers are those who make contracts with monsters, using them as familiars to fight and gather intelligence. The visitor, looking uncertain, admits he doesn't bring any monsters with him. The light-haired man bluntly tells the visitor that without a monster, he can't register at the guild. The visitor nervously insists he is a tamer who can tame a monster called Phantasma. The man reveals that Phantasma is a fire spirit named Claire, currently invisible but present. Despite this, he firmly demands the visitor to leave. The visitor cheerfully flashes a peace sign, mentioning he actually has 2 phantasmas waiting at home. The visitor reflects that his divine job is indeed a tamer, but his phantasma contract is with a race invisible to ordinary people. He laments that no guild has believed him, leaving him in this situation. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the crowd, doubting the visitor's claims and labeling him an incompetent tamer with an invisible monster. He firmly denies the rumors, insisting it's not a lie. The fire spirit Claire angrily shouts that every guild has rejected the visitor, and she's furious at the repeated dismissal. The visitor calmly explains that words have their limits and that Claire's anger on his behalf lets him stay composed. He accuses those spreading rumors of calling him a liar and incompetent, blaming them for the gossip. Claire dramatically throws herself at him, demanding justice, while he smiles gently, appreciating her support. The visitor thanks Claire, relieved she's calming down, while she urges him to get angry for his own sake. He asks what he should do next. Noting all guilds have already rejected him, Claire, frustrated and exasperated, demands to know what he plans to do, but he shrugs helplessly, unsure of his next step. The visitor mocks the guild's obsession with divine jobs, pretending to be a fire magician to gain acceptance instead of a tamer. He proclaims the birth of Kahaku the cool magician. While Claire angrily questions why he clings to being a tamer, he warns her not to lie about her occupation or she'll get caught, insisting that as long as he's around, it's impossible to fail. The narration explains the world's harsh divine job hierarchy, where good jobs pay well and bad jobs earn scorn. The visitor walks through a dilapidated building, reflecting that this is the world he was born into and that he must live by its rules. He resolves to try harder, confident that one day things will change. The final panels show him unlocking a door, symbolizing his determination to push forward despite the obstacles. Kahaku returns home to a warm welcome from his phantasmas, the divine wolf Fenrir and the marionette Sufia. He smiles as Sufia hands him his clothes, while Fenrir eagerly asks how it went. Kahaku apologizes quietly to Fenrir, admitting he failed again today. Fenrir reassures him, saying as long as they're together, he's happy anywhere. Claire approaches, thanking Fenrir softly. Her expression shifts to a sly smirk, while Kahaku looks on pensively. Claire suddenly scolds Sufia for sniffing too much, accusing her of delusion. Sufia denies it vehemently. While the maid calmly explains Claire's daily delusions make it seem that way, Kahaku tries to calm the bickering. Noting both are doing fine, Fenrir asks what Kahaku plans to do next, and he hesitates. Kahaku announces he will move to another country, hoping for better chances since no guild in the Turquoise Kingdom accepted him. Claire and Sufia listen intently as he explains rumors about him have spread nearby. So he must start fresh somewhere unknown? The three stand together, contemplating the uncertain future ahead. Kahaku reveals his plan to move to the Kingdom of Brumand, a place known for its guild of tamers. Fenrir eagerly agrees to follow him anywhere. Nuzzling affectionately, Claire and Sufia exchange surprised looks as Claire softly calls out to Kahaku-sama. Claire, Sufia, and Fenrir insist on accompanying Kahaku, each determined to support him no matter what. Kahaku beams with gratitude, touched by their loyalty. They all agree to prepare immediately and set off the next morning. The scene shifts to a quiet moment where Claire reflects on their decision. She explains that their master has given up on the Turquoise Kingdom and decided to relocate to Brumand. The mood is somber as the group contemplates the weight of this choice. Claire continues, explaining that their master is already revered as a god in Brumand, but the Turquoise Kingdom failed to recognize his worth and pushed him to leave. The others react with shock and concern, while Kahaku lies resting, the burden of the decision heavy on all their minds. A man addresses a crowd of phantasma, asking if their master has any lingering feelings toward the country that has cornered him to this point. The crowd erupts in a loud, unified denial, shouting that of course not. The scene shifts to the next morning in the Turquoise Kingdom, where a worried man asks the king if the offerings were given. The king replies that nothing happened when the time came, and a priest advises to keep faith until the oracle from Gaia arrives. Suddenly, a messenger bursts in, urgently declaring an emergency. The king listens in shock as a man explains that the guild's most powerful warrior, the Sword Saint, has suddenly become unable to use his skills. Another suggests it might be psychogenic, but the man clarifies the loss was sudden. The king struggles to comprehend how a skill powered by spirit could become unusable. Panic spreads as reports come in that the guild saint has lost her power, the great magician too, and even the alchemist. The air is becoming polluted, and hordes of demons are pouring in. The king is overwhelmed, demanding answers while trying to hold it together, warning not to say everything at once. Gaia hesitates, then admits she forgot to say her last greeting to the head of the church. The armored man insists it won't be necessary. He warns that once they leave that country, it is doomed to destruction. Another adds it won't matter if they greet the church or not. The armored man reveals he confiscated all sword skills he gave to humans, saying the country that wronged Kahaku would have no need for them. They agree to follow Kahaku wherever he goes, leaving everything else behind as night falls. Kahaku, Fenrir, and Sufia rest by a campfire in the forest at dawn. The quiet morning surrounds them with nature's calm. Kahaku holds a map, smiling as he declares he can see their destination. The group rides on Fenrir's large wolf companion, flying toward their goal. The sun shines brightly as they approach the capital of Brumund Kingdom, Alex, visible below. Sufia encourages Kahaku to be confident, assuring him this time it will work. Kahaku responds with determination, ready to face what lies ahead as they soar toward the city. Kahaku introduces himself to a guard at the Grand Gate, declaring his wish to join the Tamer's Guild and that his immigration papers should be complete. The guard confirms the paperwork seems in order and asks if Kahaku is currently taming any demons. Kahaku nervously gestures with his hands. While a large wolf, a maid, and a small fairy stand behind him, the guard looks puzzled, and Kahaku sweats nervously as the wolf silently confirms Kahaku can't see the demons. He admits there are no demons with him right now, though he worries the guard might be disappointed. Two figures mock him as incompetent and a liar. The guard acknowledges this means Kahaku is just beginning his taming journey and formally welcomes him to Alex. Kahaku, Sufia, the wolf, and the fairy stand before the imposing gate. The guard smiles warmly, expressing gladness to welcome Kahaku. The scene shifts to the town of Alex, showing bustling streets and buildings. Kahaku reflects internally, surprised to hear the word master again after so long, and worries the guard might think he's a weirdo. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him, addressing him as master. Sufia points out the shortest route to the guild, and Kahaku thanks her with a smile. The group begins walking through the town, with Kahaku feeling uncertain but trying to reassure himself that everything will be okay. The wolf and fairy accompany them as they move forward, while Kahaku glances around anxiously, aware that this country likely knows nothing about him. Kahaku stands before a grand building guarded by two large wolf statues, determination shining in his eyes as he silently vows, "This time for sure." The bustling crowd passes by, oblivious to his resolve. Inside the guild, Kahaku marvels at the diverse demons everywhere. Amazed by the lively scene, a woman remarks how fitting it is for a specialized tamer's guild. Kahaku reflects that demon presence varies by country, noting he saw few in Turkali's kingdom. Suddenly, a commotion erupts as a man notices Kahaku trembling and asks why. Kahaku is startled, realizing humans can't see phantasma but can perceive demons like him. The tension rises as Kahaku processes this unsettling truth. Outside, Sufia explains that phantasma are the highest species of demons, feared even by other demons. The small creature apologizes for scaring Kahaku, but its growl warns of danger nearby. Kahaku and Sufia prepare to face whatever approaches, alert and ready. Kahaku offers an apple to the small creature, asking if it would like some. The creature looks surprised but responds with a soft sound. Sufia watches quietly nearby, smiling gently. Kahaku and the creature share a warm moment before a voice interrupts, saying, excuse me." Inside the guild, Kahaku nervously requests to register as a member. The staff member with a braid acknowledges him politely, asking him to wait a moment. Kahaku glances around anxiously at the bustling guild filled with various demons. The staff apologizes for the wait, and Kahaku resolves to leave as soon as the process is done. A cheerful guild staff member named Saria introduces herself to Kahaku. He stammers, feeling embarrassed as his voice becomes strange. Saria asks if he is registering today, then places a crystal orb on the table, instructing him to touch it first. Kahaku looks at the orb with curiosity, asking what it is. Saria explains the orb is a recently developed crystal that displays the types and number of demons a tamer can control. She says the guild is the only place in the world with such a device. Kahaku is shocked and asks if it can reveal what demons can be tamed. Saria confirms, adding that even if he tries to lie, the crystal will know immediately. Kahaku stares at the orb, overwhelmed by this new information. Saria notices Kahaku's hesitation and asks if something is wrong, but he quickly denies it, trying to hide his nervousness. Fenrir excitedly urges Kahaku to throw the orb, while Saria scolds Fenrir for being loud. Kahaku, blushing and overwhelmed, stares at the orb, unable to believe what he's found. Saria encourages him to give it a try, and Kahaku moves closer to the orb, preparing to touch it. Kahaku reaches out and touches the orb, causing a sparkling reaction. Fenrir eagerly asks if he can eat it, while Saria calmly tells everyone to stay calm. Kahaku's expression shifts to awe as the orb glows, and Saria instructs him to let go of his hand. Kahaku nervously complies, releasing his grip on the orb. Saria explains that they will use the light from the orb to analyze Kahaku's information as a tamer, asking him to wait. She points out 3 golden lights appearing inside the orb. Kahaku and Saria both react with surprise. Sensing something significant, Kahaku's face shows disbelief, while Saria studies the orb closely. Suddenly, Saria grabs Kahaku by the shoulders, shouting in shock that he is a phantasma tamer. The surrounding people look on in confusion. Kahaku is stunned, his eyes wide with realization. Saria's expression is a mix of shock and urgency as she confirms the revelation, while Kahaku slowly accepts the truth. In the reception office, Saria bows deeply, apologizing for raising her voice in front of many people. Kahaku nervously invites her to sit and talk it over. Saria explains the crystal's light changes color depending on the demon that can be tamed. She asks why Kahaku was so surprised, reminding him he said he would know if he had those crystals. Saria shows silhouettes of different phantasma types with their corresponding colors. Red for beasts, purple for insects, green for naturals, black for dragons, and so on. She apologizes that the color of phantasma has been a mystery until now and admits the golden light isn't mentioned in the instruction manual. Kahaku realizes this means the golden light is an undiscovered phantasma, and Saria thought he was a phantasma tamer because of it. She excitedly points out the location of the lights, confirming Kahaku has already tamed 3 phantasma. Kahaku looks around the room, while Saria beams with enthusiasm. Nearby, Fenrir, Gaia, and another woman watch with mixed confusion and concern. Fenrir wonders if he should deal with Saria's overfamiliarity. Her expression turns unnerving as she giggles and chuckles in a somewhat unsettling way. Kahaku and the others watch her uneasily as she approaches. While Fenrir and the others exchange worried glances, Saria's behavior grows more intense, and she moves closer to Kahaku, who remains seated, tense and uncertain. Saria clings close to Kahaku, who nervously tries to stay calm despite her unsettling behavior. She insists the golden phantasma light is here, breathing the same air as them. Kahaku awkwardly calls her out, and she apologizes, admitting she's a demon maniac when it comes to new species. He quietly accepts that she's just that kind of person as she giggles and bows deeply before him. She expresses relief that Kahaku recognizes her as a phantasma tamer, but wonders how to prove everyone else is present. A confident woman in a flowing cape approaches, saying that will be easy. The woman reveals that Kahaku only needs to fight the guild master. She walks ahead with a man in a suit, both smiling warmly, signaling the next challenge awaiting Kahaku. The Brumand Kingdom arena looms large, surrounded by a town and forest. Saria turns to Kahaku, announcing she will introduce him to the guild master of the Tamer Guild. Kahaku stands silently behind her, absorbing the moment. A radiant woman named Tawa Irahim greets Kahaku warmly, asking if he is the phantasma tamer. Kahaku nervously confirms his identity. Tawa laughs softly, calling him a cute child and reassuring him there's no need to be afraid. She insists she is not a child, revealing she will be 20 this year. Tawa approaches Kahaku, teasing that despite appearances, he is still a child to her. Kahaku is taken aback, noting that she looks about his age. He senses an intimidating presence emanating from her, causing him to sweat nervously. Tawa acknowledges that some tamers are stronger than their familiars and asserts she is a strong tamer herself. Kahaku, overwhelmed, internally laments how everyone got carried away just because she can't see the flying bug spirits. Fenrir warns her not to call the spirits flying bugs or he might turn her into scrap. Tawa playfully mocks the warning, while Kahaku struggles to keep up with the situation. A small figure shouts for Junk to come over, while a large wolf circles playfully. A girl in a flowing dress watches quietly. Thinking this is her once-in-a-lifetime chance to get a job here, he urges everyone to listen carefully. The girl curiously asks what he was doing as he snaps his fingers. He explains he was calling everyone who was lingering around her. They stand together in a large arena, the wolf looming protectively beside them. The girl muses aloud that her phantasma really are invisible, confirming her belief in him. He smiles, feeling reassured by her faith. She offers to introduce her demon, extending her hand gracefully. She calls out to someone named Crushchan, beckoning them to come. He reflects that phantasma don't reveal themselves to the public, and most doubt their existence. Dragons are visible to everyone and clearly real. Unlike phantasma, everyone agrees on this undeniable truth. The gaze of a young man meets the fierce eye of a dragon, confirming their reality. The strongest creature is the dragon. A majestic woman stands beside a massive dragon, explaining that this child is a drake-type dragon, known as the Black Dragon. The young man reacts in surprise. The woman praises the young man's knowledge as he confirms the Black Dragon's identity. A chart shows the hierarchy among dragons. With drakes at the top, the Black Dragon is the strongest, extremely tough and ferocious. Colored dragons include red, blue, green, yellow, and white, while normal ones are gray. A huge dragon roars fiercely, declared a genuine monster. A girl excitedly calls it a noisy reptile and asks to destroy it. The young man, a woman, a large wolf, and the girl stand facing the dragon as the question is posed. Is everyone confident they can defeat that dragon one-on-one? The wolf cheerfully insists it would be easy, repeating easy, easy. The woman with a confident smile adds that it would be no problem, claiming she'd have more trouble cutting radish with a knife. The dark-haired figure calmly agrees, understanding the challenge ahead. The woman decides to ask Claire to perform this time, promising a good show. Claire, unamused, warns the flying bug not to give a shabby performance. The wolf looks downcast, while the dragon growls, and a woman wonders if the dragon is Crushchan's opponent. The young man explains Claire is a fire spirit and one of his 3 contracted demons. Claire playfully tries to intimidate the dragon, calling it cute. The young man reacts nervously as the woman smiles mysteriously. The woman reassures Kahaku, telling him it's okay. She asks if everyone is ready, and when they affirm, she raises her hand and declares readiness, signaling the start of what lies ahead. The young man commands Claire to begin, shouting her name with urgency. The woman smiles confidently and orders Crushchan to use her breath attack. Claire responds eagerly, ready to act. Claire unleashes a powerful blast, but the attack is halted by a shimmering dome of defense magic. The woman explains that the Black Dragon's breath, which can vaporize steel, was blocked by Claire's shield. The young man warns not to get carried away as he explains Claire is the strongest fire elemental phantasma, capable of nullifying any fire attack. The woman smirks knowingly, affirming Claire's power. Suddenly, the dragon lunges forward with a fierce claw attack. The woman scolds the dragon, calling it naive as Claire blocks the dragon's claw with her shield for the first time ever. She instructs Crushchan to put the shield back on, while the young man reacts in surprise, realizing how close the attack came to breaking the magic. The young man urgently orders Claire to stand back as the dragon lunges forward, its claw wrapped in dark tendrils aiming to strike. Claire's shield holds firm, blocking the attack just in time. The dragon crashes into the ground, shattering the arena floor with its impact. A woman watching nearby smiles approvingly, praising the quick reaction. The young man questions if the dragon's sudden power surge was due to Kahaku's enchantment magic. The woman confirms this, explaining that only a human can use this special body enhancement magic. She reveals that Tawa-san is capable of using such magic because she is contracted with a tamer who can wield it. The young man calls out to Claire, telling her it's their turn now, and she rushes forward, ready to act. Claire unleashes a powerful breath attack, the force roaring out like a dragon's own breath. The attack surges forward as the others watch intently, prepared to support. The woman explains that Claire is a phantasma who uses breath equivalent to a dragon's, able to block all their attacks. The young man and the others stand ready, watching the dragon fly away above the arena, smoke rising from the scorched ground below. The young man wonders if fire spirits truly have the power to use fire magic at will, as the woman riding the dragon confirms they specialize in heat-related abilities and can manipulate flame and temperature freely. She laughs, admitting she didn't expect Phantasma to be so strong yet acknowledges she still has much to learn. The young man tries to keep his composure as she teases him not to get carried away. The woman asks if he still has 2 more companions, and they argue over who is the strongest among them, each claiming the title. The woman reassures the dragon, calling it by name, and the young man nervously waves off any complaints. She approaches him, extending her hand. The woman invites him to work together as a hunter in the Tamer Guild. The young man, along with his companions, listens intently before accepting her offer with a handshake. This marks the first step toward fulfilling the young man's dream. The young man sits alone in the guildmaster's room, noting that the guild trials have been passed but wondering where Kahaku is. He observes the room's starkness. No beautiful decorations, no stuffed dolls, just a faint smell of booze and even a knife stuck in the door. He reflects that since guild masters in Turquoise Kingdom are mostly male, this austere style is the difference between men and women. Suddenly, a voice apologizes for the wait. A woman enters gracefully, offering tea to the young man, who thanks her nervously. He steals a glance at her. Thinking how beautiful she is, she smiles warmly, and he realizes this is the first time a woman other than Sophia and Claire has been kind to him. They share a light-hearted moment as she jokes about not eating him. Though she teases that Crush-chan might, he laughs, trying to keep his composure. The woman continues to joke, causing the young man to spill some tea in surprise. She laughs softly, saying she's joking, but he remains flustered. Suddenly, Tawa-san calls out, offering chocolate chip cookies, which the young man eagerly accepts. Fenrir and the others happily munch on the treats, while the woman remarks on Tawa-san's unchanging smile, unsure if she's joking or serious. The young man is caught between amusement and confusion. The cookies mysteriously disappear on their own, surprising the young man, who apologizes for taking them without asking. The woman smiles, pleased that everyone is happily eating. The plate is suddenly empty, and the young man is shocked. Saria appears, holding a portion of cookies reserved for the guildmaster, reassuring him. The young man realizes they have eaten everything, while Claire joyfully celebrates in the background. The young man eagerly bites into a cookie, exclaiming how delicious it is. He notices the woman behind him clenching her fist in excitement. Realizing she thanked him, he marvels at the taste, admitting he's never had such delicious cookies before. The clock and teacups quietly mark the peaceful moment. The woman invites him to talk now that they've relaxed, and he agrees nervously. She gently places a wrapped item on the table, prompting him to open it. His curiosity grows as he reaches for the package. He carefully unwraps the cloth to reveal a detailed brooch. The woman explains it identifies him as a guild member of the Tamer Guild. He stares in surprise, absorbing the significance of the emblem. He questions if the brooch is a bronze plate. Recalling the guild ranks from iron up to mithril, the woman confirms that as a special exception, he will start from the bronze plate rank. He looks uncertain but listens intently as she mentions his match against Crush-chan. For 7 years, he wandered from guild to guild, desperate to join as a tamer. A stern man questions him, doubting his claim since the flame he released matches that of a wizard, not a tamer. The crowd jeers, calling him an incompetent liar and mocking the idea of phantasma as mere imaginary creatures. Despite the accusations, his eyes reveal a flicker of determination. A woman smiles warmly, suggesting that perhaps all his struggles over the past 7 years were leading to this moment. He clutches the brooch tightly, pondering its significance as a symbol of acceptance. Memories surface of his father's encouraging words from childhood, which gave him the strength to persevere. The young man's resolve hardens as he recalls the support that brought him this far. The woman gently places the brooch in his hand, invoking the name of Tawa Arahim as she pledges her support. She promises to stand by him and refuses to let anyone complain about his acceptance, reinforcing his newfound status and the hope it brings. Tears stream down the young man's face as he looks up, overwhelmed by emotion. A gentle hand reaches out, holding a brooch tightly in his palm, offering silent comfort and support. The tension breaks as a worried woman calls out his name, while a large, fluffy creature and a maid watch quietly. The young man struggles with his feelings, unsure what to do, wiping his tears as the woman gently pats his head, urging calm. They sit together in a peaceful room, the woman offering quiet reassurance. The young man cries freely now, his heart heavy but eased by the woman's kind words. She encourages him to let his emotions out if it lightens his heart. The fluffy creature and maid look on, while the woman's calm presence soothes him. Sitting side by side, the woman continues to comfort him, patting his head despite the maid and creature's mild protests. The young man thanks her, though he feels conflicted about being spoiled. She then asks him to stand, gently guiding him to rise, her kindness unwavering as he hesitantly complies. The young man winces, overwhelmed by the scent of the woman beside him, while a maid and a small figure watch silently. She announces the transformation is complete and invites him to look in the mirror. He turns, nervous but curious, as she gently encourages him to take a good look. He faces the mirror, the woman draping a formal cloak over his shoulders, the maid, a fluffy creature, and a small figure cheer his new appearance, praising how well the cloak suits him. His expression shifts to surprise and awe. The woman smiles warmly as the young man bows deeply, thanking her. She tells him to visit the reception desk to get more information from a staff member named Saria and encourages him to start taking requests immediately. The young man beams with excitement and determination. The woman explains the guild's work, detailing various requests like searching, gathering, and eliminating demons. She clarifies that with his bronze plate rank, he will mainly focus on searching and gathering, as iron plates are still novices who cannot eliminate demons. The young man understands how ranks build from the bottom up and eagerly agrees to work together from now on. The woman asks if he would accept a request to eliminate demons, but he explains he's already bronze rank and wants to start with search and gathering requests like iron plates. He reasons that a request means people are in need, so he wants to help even a little. The woman falls silent, clutching her hands tightly, then quietly pleads for help with her demon. The young man notices her sudden change and calls her name hesitantly. She smiles kindly, reflecting that they've had bronze plate starters before but never anyone like him. She calls him a kind person and offers to explain how to accept requests, leading him onward. They arrive at a board displaying various requests, where she explains that gold and above requests must be accepted at the reception desk due to danger, but iron, bronze, and silver requests can be found here. The requests include herb gathering, iron mining, searching for a runaway horse, investigating a spider lily colony, and eliminating 10 goblins. The young man decides to start with herb gathering first, and she tells him to confirm his application at the reception desk. A man reports that Saria has said he's heading out to gather herbs. The woman smiles warmly as the young man sets off with determination, bidding a cheerful farewell. The woman asks how many herbs they need, explaining that more herbs are better since they are ingredients for recovery medicines. The young man agrees, and the woman wonders how to find them, noting all grass looks the same to her. The young man tells Sufia that the amount should be fine, and she responds respectfully, his eyes sharpen with focus. A detection field is generated around them. The young man points out a red glowing grass. Identifying it as the herb they need, he asks if he can just pull it out, and the woman instructs Claire to fly around and gather many herbs from above. Claire eagerly agrees, while the young man smiles holding the herb. The dog excitedly alerts the young man to a different herb that smells good. The woman explains it is a superior herb that mutates and manifests into a higher rank of herbs. They agree to separate the bags and collect this one as well, promising not to gather too many. The young man praises the dog for finding it, and the dog happily asks if it's doing a great job. Back at the guild, the young man announces his return to Saria. She welcomes him back and asks where to put the herbs. He says to place them there so she can appraise them with her skill. She reminds Fawn to mind his surroundings and come over, and he responds cheerfully. Saria freezes in surprise as the young man drops a large sack of herbs on the table. He gestures behind him, explaining a friend is carrying more on his back. She asks where it went, then notices several sacks lined up. He nervously admits it might not be enough, sweat dripping down his face. She asks if all these are herbs. The young man confirms nervously, heart pounding, as Saria points out that one sack is full of superior herbs. She wonders why so many superior herbs were collected. He struggles to explain, saying it's thanks to his friend's power. Nearby, a man acknowledges the quality, noting superior herbs differ from the request but thanks them for taking so many. Saria smiles warmly, glad to hear this. She explains that superior herbs are almost indistinguishable from regular ones, but their collection rank has improved. She thanks the young man for the whole bag full and asks him to exchange it. Fenrir encourages him to keep up the good work as Saria and the maid watch from the doorway. Meanwhile, Claire proudly claims credit for flying around and collecting the herbs, teasing that without her scan, they couldn't have gathered so many. The maid looks unimpressed. Claire suddenly growls in frustration, lamenting that Kahaku wasn't paying attention when she hit him once. A tall man approaches the young man, hiccuping and angrily declaring he won't accept a pansy like him. The drunk man slurs insults, mocking the claim of being a phantasma tamer, and challenges the young man. He is shocked when the young man says Tawasan already approved it. The drunk man is outraged that the guild master was called by her name. The young man thinks the drunk is too intoxicated to reason with, while the drunk man lashes out, demanding to know whose side the young man is on. The drunk man insists on fighting using their familiars like true tamers, ignoring the young man's reminder that personal fights among guild members are forbidden. The drunk man laughs off the rules, declaring he doesn't care. The young man reluctantly agrees they must follow the rules, while the drunk man smirks knowingly. The drunk man taunts the young man, accusing him of having no demons to tame and demanding a fight. The young man asks Kahaku if he can kill the drunk man, but Kahaku remains silent. Claire and Fenrir appear, with Fenrir growling fiercely and Claire chanting exterminate repeatedly, intimidating the drunk man. The young man panics, shouting that he already said the fight can't happen. The young man knocks the drunk man to the floor with a forceful strike. He notices a small dragon perched on his wrist and realizes it's Tawasan's familiar, now grown. Claire cheerfully asks which idiot is causing trouble in the guild. The young man blushes, overwhelmed by the coolness of the familiar, while Fenrir growls protectively. A small dragon familiar greets Kahaku warmly as Tawasan stands beside him. Smiling gently, Kahaku nervously asks for an explanation. Realizing Tawa-san is upset, she explains that Kahaku is a genuine phantasma tamer who fought fairly with Crush-chan, and she approved his joining the guild. A tense man demands objections be addressed to him directly. Tawa-san calmly acknowledges the situation, and Kahaku responds with a hesitant, "I see." The tense man stammers, questioning Tawa-san's decision, but she smiles and asks if he doubts her. Kahaku feels the pressure mounting and apologizes. While Tawa-san praises him as a good boy, she insists personal fights among guild members are forbidden and asks Tawa-san if she agrees. Tawa-san confirms, saying this is to prevent future incidents. Kahaku, overwhelmed, covers his mouth in shock as Tawa-san smiles knowingly. She invites him to continue their discussion in another room. Kahaku follows, and a guild staff member greets him politely, asking him to confirm the exchange is complete. The staff member explains the currency exchange rates. 100 copper coins equal 1 silver coin, 100 silver equal 1 gold, and 100 gold equal 1 platinum. Kahaku calculates that 1 kilogram of herbs costs 10 copper coins. The staff member details the current request. 100 kilograms of herbs will earn 10 silver and 5 copper coins, while 40 kilograms of superior herbs cost 4 gold coins. Kahaku is stunned by the prices but is offered help finding an inn to stay. He thanks the staff member and prepares for the next request. A lively girl calls out to Kahaku, saying she's hungry and asking if he's been eating too much since leaving the guild. Teasing him about cookies and baked sweet potatoes, Kahaku and the maid remain silent, while another girl overhears and calls Kahaku fatty. Prompting an angry outburst, Kahaku internally notes how much she eats. He then instructs Sophia to bring a map and find reasonably priced inns nearby. Kahaku and the maid examine a map showing several inns, with one marked as their destination. The maid explains that the inn costs 50 copper coins per night, including breakfast and dinner. Kahaku wonders if this is a normal price for an inn and reflects that a bronze rank who can take elimination requests can barely afford to stay there. He concludes that 2 meals for 1 night is a reasonable price and agrees to go there. They arrive at Fleur Inn, greeted warmly by a cheerful woman who asks how many nights Kahaku will stay. Kahaku replies he will stay with 10 silver coins for now. A young girl calls the woman mom, and the woman informs Kahaku that the stay will be 20 nights. Kahaku looks on with a mix of surprise and concern as the woman explains the pricing in detail. 50 copper coins per night, 100 copper coins for 1 silver coin, and 10 silver coins total. Kahaku politely introduces himself and asks the woman's name. She responds warmly and apologizes for any inconvenience. She then asks Frederica, a maid, to show Kahaku to his room. Frederica happily leads Kahaku to room 205, inviting him to follow her as they head inside the inn. Kahaku receives his clothes from Sophia, who warns him not to sniff them again. He thanks her with a smile, while a maid watches with a deadpan expression. Kahaku sits quietly, then gazes out the window at the peaceful night sky over the town. The next morning, Kahaku is warmly welcomed by the guild staff, including Tawa Arihim and Sophia, who cheerfully promise to support him. When asked about his plans, Kahaku says he intends to take an iron mining request in the morning and, if time permits, an elimination request. The lively maid insists that elimination requests must target something with bones, like a dragon. Since bronze rank tamers can't handle tougher foes, Kahaku laughs, accepting the challenge. As night falls, 2 men stand overlooking the town, noting that a phantasma tamer has joined the guild. One man asks the other for his opinion, expressing a desire to meet Kahaku if he truly is there. The scene closes on Kahaku, contemplative and curious about the future ahead. The guild staff member explains there are 2 iron mining requests available, located at Blio's mine and Raison mine. Kahaku says he has already decided to go to Raison mine. The staff warns him that while Blio's mine is reachable in 2 days by carriage, Raison mine takes 5 days. She also mentions the guild is currently short on good quality iron ore and would appreciate his help. Kahaku admits a friend told him the iron ore quality is better there. The staff member questions if he's sure about the longer journey, showing concern. Kahaku resolves to help the guild by supplying good quality iron ore, wanting to repay their acceptance of him. Sophia quietly peeks from a doorway with a small smile. The staff member smiles warmly and says she understands his determination. Kahaku's resolve strengthens as he prepares for the task. The next day, Kahaku approaches Frederica and asks for help preparing food for his upcoming journey. He apologizes for the sudden request and explains he will be away for a few days on a guild request. Frederica asks how many days' worth of food he needs. Kahaku thinks about the fact that Sophia doesn't eat, so he needs to prepare food for himself, Claire, and Fenrir for 3 days. Frederica nods, ready to assist. Kahaku confirms he wants 28 servings of food. Frederica is surprised by the amount and asks if he is going far. Kahaku reassures her the distance isn't that far. Frederica worries the food might spoil if it's too much. But Kahaku laughs and says it's fine because the food will be eaten within 3 days. Frederica reacts with shock, exclaiming she'll ask her father about it. Frederica rushes in apologizing for the wait and confirms they can prepare 28 servings of boxed food. Though there will be extra charges, Kahaku asks the cost and Frederica, struggling to calculate, explains it's 25 copper per serving plus a 1.2 times surcharge. She excitedly announces the total as 16 silver and 80 copper, while another maid calmly corrects it to 8 silver and 40 copper. The next morning, Kahaku, Claire, Fenrir and Frederica arrive at Raison Mine. Kahaku notes they reached it in 2 hours. Crediting Fenrir, Fenrir reports no unusual smells or signs of humans inside the cave. Kahaku thanks Claire and Fenrir, then asks Claire for light. The group enters the dark mine with Claire lighting the way. They confirm this is the mining site. Kahaku assigns digging to himself, Fenrir and Sufia. While Claire will handle putting iron ore in the sack, the maid agrees to generate a detection field to assist them. The team begins mining, with Kahaku struggling as the pickaxe shocks his hands. He considers letting Fenrir do all the digging but refuses. Wanting to help as their master, Fenrir energetically digs, barking directions to Kahaku, who watches with a mix of admiration and determination. Kahaku is told the 4th sack is already full, and he marvels at how fast the work is progressing. He reflects that at this rate, they'll finish by tomorrow, all thanks to everyone's effort. Suddenly, Frederica alerts him to a human presence nearby. Both turn to see the cave's dark interior, and she warns that the presence is getting closer, causing Kahaku to tense up. A group of 3 people approaches through the cave, clearly not from the Tamer's Guild, but they're strong. Kahaku wonders what kind of people they are, especially since Sufia mentioned their strength. The group advances steadily, and Kahaku quietly mutters "Kama" as they near. The newcomers confirm someone is inside the mine. One of them, Cole, is questioned about the absence of people inside, but he insists there is nobody except them. Kahaku notices a brooch on one man's chest, identifying it as a symbol from the Battle Guild. The darkness makes it hard to tell if the brooch is silver, but Kahaku's unease grows. The man with the brooch smiles knowingly. Catching Kahaku staring, embarrassed, Kahaku admits he's staring too much. The man apologizes for startling him and explains they also came to mine iron. He then asks if Kahaku could share some of the ore with them. Kahaku, caught off guard, responds with a hesitant "Kama." Kahaku offers the iron ore piled nearby, inviting the group to take some if they want. The 3 men acknowledge this quietly, while a woman and a large wolf-like creature grow impatient. Telling Kahaku he's in the way, one man exclaims in surprise at the amount of iron ore and asks if they can bring some with them. Noting its high purity, Kahaku nervously agrees that it's no problem. The man with light hair thanks Kahaku sincerely for his help and offers to repay him somehow. Kahaku suggests maybe they can help with something instead. He notices the man's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. Sensing it's not genuine, as the man turns away, he calls out to Kahaku that there's one more thing. The tall woman in the elegant dress warns Kahaku that some members of the Battle Guild have short tempers and advises him to stay calm and run away if trouble arises. Promising they'll help him, Kahaku tries to steady himself, repeating to stay cool, and politely declines the offer of help, saying he appreciates it but it's all right. Kahaku is overwhelmed as the woman and the wolf argue about disposing of him. While 2 armored women prepare to fight, the light-haired man introduces himself as a sir and tells Kahaku to visit Alek's Battle Guild if he needs anything, assuring him that mentioning a sir's name will make them listen. Kahaku waves goodbye and heads deeper into the mine, leaving the group behind. Kahaku collapses onto the ground, exhausted despite no fight breaking out. He wonders why he feels so drained when the others seem like people he can talk to. The wolf and 2 women watch him quietly. He agrees to continue, though fatigue weighs on him. Inside a cave, a group discusses Kahaku's belongings left behind, focusing on a bronze plate on his jacket. They confirm it belongs to the Tamer's Guild and mention an unusual rumor about the guild recently. The group reacts with surprise to the mention of a phantasma Tamer joining. One questions if it's just a myth, but another points out that Kahaku is a hunter for the Tamer's Guild. The emblem on the plate is shown in detail. Kahaku stands alone in the cave, unaware of the conversation. The group explains that a Tamer cannot accept requests without a familiar, and they question if Kahaku is the rumored phantasma Tamer, though they lack proof. A muscular man suggests it might be better to tell Kahaku something important, but the blonde man disagrees, saying they should wait and see how things go for now. Nearby, Kahaku cheerfully admits they still don't know how long he'll be inside the cave. While a maid quietly watches, outside the cave entrance, 3 figures stand, contemplating that if Kahaku somehow made it to that place, it changes the situation. The man with glasses firmly states they can help Kahaku. The group then faces the ominous cave entrance, ready to confront whatever awaits inside. The next morning, Fenrir excitedly digs, nearly hitting his master with dirt. Kahaku laughs and tells Fenrir to hold back, crediting Fenrir for their smooth progress. Fenrir eagerly asks if he's doing great, and Kahaku reassures him he is. The maid warns Kahaku he's spoiling Fenrir too much, but he just wants everyone to be at ease. Fenrir suddenly asks if he can dig too, surprising the maid. A thick cloud of dust rises as Kahaku and the maid watch nervously. Kahaku exclaims that a big hole has opened, but the maid is unimpressed and says it's nothing. The fairy asks if the maid said something, but she remains silent. They all look at the hole, with Fenrir and the fairy nearby. Kahaku and the maid confirm there is still more to dig ahead. Despite their efforts since yesterday, they peer down into the large hole. Kahaku suggests moving to a new spot now that most of the iron or nearby has been collected, and the maid agrees. They prepare to continue digging deeper. The group enters a vast cavern, with Kahaku amazed by its size. Fenrir and the maid follow closely, the fairy flying above. Kahaku notices something unusual and asks what it is. The maid and Fenrir warn him to stay alert. While Fenrir promises to protect him, Kahaku wonders if he is in a situation where he needs protection. The group debates whether they should leave now, but the maid insists they likely already woke it up upon entering. The tension spikes as a massive creature begins to stir, its sharp, crystal-like limbs cracking ominously. The group stands alert, watching the cavern floor tremble beneath them. Kahaku reacts with shock and disgust as the monstrous spider-like creature reveals itself, dripping with slime and bearing its many eyes and fangs. Nearby, a group of men notice the disturbance and worry someone has ventured into the dangerous zone. They confirm the threat and prepare for confrontation. Two men rush toward a glowing entrance, questioning how someone could have reached such a place in only one day. One reflects that it should have been clear from the person's behavior. The urgency builds as they race forward. The scene shifts to a frantic battle where a young man struggles against a demon, his companions shouting his name and urging him to fight. They note the vast amount of iron ore gathered, far beyond what one person could manage, and suspect the presence of a familiar. The leader commands everyone to prepare for battle, desperation and resolve clear in his eyes. A swirling, fiery vortex erupts, its chaotic energy crackling wildly as a voice urges, "Please stay safe." For figures stand at the edge, staring in awe and concern. Their expressions reveal shock and tension as they face the unknown threat. Nearby, a small group debates the danger. One insists Fenrir alone can handle the threat, while another warns not to let their guard down. A frustrated girl yells back, "Excuse me?" The boy tries to calm them, but the tension remains as they acknowledge familiar faces. Kolsan and Ronsan. The boy assures the group they don't intend to fight, surprising everyone. He reveals their true purpose: to eliminate the demon lurking in the dangerous zone, an area officially marked by hunters with detection abilities. The group listens intently, absorbing the gravity of the mission. The scene shifts to a stormy night landscape, highlighting perilous places where powerful demons may appear. The boy recalls how he and Fenrir dug deeper last night, explaining how he ended up confronting the demon. He apologizes for putting others in harm's way, while a concerned companion chides him for spoiling Fenrir too much. The mood mixes regret with determination. The boy admits the trouble happened because he dug around too much, not Asursan's fault. He nervously explains it was because he let Fen get carried away. The blonde swordsman suggests calling it even here, which unsettles the boy, making him vow to reflect on this. The boy agrees hesitantly, realizing the situation as he looks up with a mix of relief and surprise. The blonde swordsman confirms the boy is the phantasma tamer he's heard rumors about joining the Tamer's Guild. The boy is surprised and tries to deny hiding it, but the swordsman insists there's no need to hide the truth. The boy wonders how the swordsman knew it was him, while the swordsman explains the rumor started when they met yesterday. The swordsman points out the boy wears the Tamer's Guild brooch but lacks any familiar insignia. He was convinced moments ago when he saw the boy's power overwhelm a giant spider. The boy admits he's a phantasma tamer and a member of Tawasan's guild. The swordsman reacts with awe, declaring the boy the real deal, and they clasp hands enthusiastically. The swordsman introduces himself as Asur Kreutz, a swordsman from the Battle Guild. He expresses amazement at meeting the legendary phantasma tamer in such a place. The boy reintroduces himself, and Asur introduces his comrades. Cole Magicalia, a magician, and Roan Barrett, a brawler, both from the Battle Guild. The boy nervously responds with his name, Kahaku, as the group warmly welcomes him. The group stands in a dangerous zone, and the boy expresses surprise at seeing silver plates here. Assuming they must be high-level Battle Guild members, one of the men laughs, clarifying they are actually mithril plates, not silver. The boy's shock deepens as he realizes they are Battle Guild's mithril plate hunters. The men laugh heartily at the boy finally realizing who they are, While he apologizes for his earlier rudeness, the leader invites him to join the battle guild, offering a yearly contract worth 50 platinum coins. The boy looks uncertain as the maid watches silently. The maid explains that joining the guild comes with a mithril plate and payment for completing requests. The girl and the fluffy creature react excitedly to the offer. The leader asks the boy what he thinks, but the boy apologizes quietly. The boy explains he can't join the battle guild because he already found his place, thanks to Taosan recognizing him. He reflects on the people in the guild who welcomed him warmly and whom he has yet to repay. The leader acknowledges this, understanding the boy's decision. The knight assures the boy that his feelings matter and insists it's all right. The boy listens as the knight explains the demon they faced was a death spider, its body composed of magic crystal. The boy wonders if magic crystals differ from magic stones. A man with glasses clarifies that magic stones are crystallized magic power formed inside a demon's body, while magic crystals are crystallized magic power leaked out when a demon dies. The muscular man advises taking as much magic crystal as possible, showing a large crystal likely containing thousands of demon magic. The knight confirms the boy killed the demon and explains the crystal can be sold for money or used to craft magic weapons. The boy questions if their request might be unusual. The man with glasses calls the knight a bad person for testing the boy to see if he could be blinded by money or fame. The knight admits he can't hide anything from them. They remind him they can't poach from other guilds and ask what he'll do if the boy accepts the offer. The knight reflects that the boy wasn't blinded by greed and followed his heart, so there's nothing to worry about. The boy apologizes nervously. The knight jokes about groveling to the guild master to get the boy accepted. He smiles, saying he wants to see the demon's power up close. The boy, with the maid nearby, admits he's not working for money and is unsure about the decision. The maid asks if he's sure, and the boy hesitantly responds, unsure what to say. A voice begins by addressing Kahaku, urging him to embody key virtues. A woman tells him to be strong. A wolf-like creature encourages bravery, and a maid-like figure advises righteousness. A man kneels before a young boy, telling him to be sincere. The boy smiles warmly, holding his father's words deeply in his heart, reflecting on the guidance as a source of strength. Kahaku returns and urgently calls out to Saria, who rushes over anxiously asking if he is all right. He asks what's wrong as she explains a powerful demon may have appeared in the depths of Raison Mine. She heard that the Battle Guild's mithril hunters were sent to take it down, but something is troubling her. Kahaku realizes she's talking about a Sursan's group. Saria tearfully admits it's the third day since Kahaku left, and she didn't know his whereabouts. Worrying he might have met the demon early, she asks if he returned halfway through his trip, but Kahaku avoids her gaze, unable to answer directly. Suddenly, a voice off-panel exclaims in shock that Kahaku defeated the death spider that appeared in the dangerous zone. Kahaku modestly credits the help of his phantasmas, but the others insist it was a team effort. The mood shifts abruptly as a man slams his hands on the table, declaring the situation makes no sense at all and that's not the problem here. He demands Kahaku listen carefully. The man explains that being a hunter means death is always near, like sharing a bed with death. He stresses the importance of improving the ability to sense danger and think critically. He warns Kahaku that when danger is felt, the best choice is to run away. He reminds him that his life is his alone, unique in the world, and must be protected at all costs. Clenching his fists on the table, he apologizes for losing his temper, confessing he just can't bear to see another hunter die. His expression softens as he looks up, hearing his name called gently. The young man smiles warmly and thanks her sincerely, causing her eyes to well up with tears. She covers her face, overwhelmed by emotion, while he reaches out in concern. She apologizes for crying earlier and confirms her desire to craft a magic weapon. He agrees, and she instructs him to take the iron ore needed while she arranges delivery for the rest. He eagerly decides to take some iron ore and magic crystal, surprising her with his enthusiasm. She nervously praises his skill, holding the magic crystals with a mix of awe and embarrassment. She asks for 2 hours to appraise them and encourages him to handle other tasks meanwhile. Outside, the group walks down the steps as she explains the location of a blacksmith town called Flammeln, where a renowned smith named Zakis resides. Frederica explains that a magic weapon contains magical power, giving the example of a sword embedded with fireball magic that can shoot fireballs without using mana when swung. She emphasizes the importance of choosing the right weapon first. The young man realizes there are many kinds of weapons but worries that if he can't use one properly, it won't help him. Frederica confirms this and says that after analyzing his growth rate and other factors, she believes a one-handed sword would be the best choice for him. The scene shifts to the blacksmith town Flammeln, shown in a wide view with mountains in the distance. Inside the bustling town, the young man, Frederica, and a small flying companion admire the lively atmosphere. The young man expresses his love for towns with such energy, and the girl with twin buns excitedly agrees. They notice a crowd gathered nearby, prompting them to decide to go and see what is happening. The young man and Frederica stand among a crowd watching a demonstration. Frederica points out that the weapon being displayed is a magic weapon, surprising the young man. A blonde-haired figure prepares to strike a large wooden log with a sword that glows with magical energy. The young man's eyes widen in recognition and awe as the sword is revealed. A determined blonde man grips a crystal-tipped sword, raising it above his head with fierce focus. The young man watches nervously, swallowing hard as the blonde shouts a powerful battle cry, unleashing a surge of energy. The blonde swings the sword down onto a large wooden log, flames erupting from the blade. The log splits and burns on the surface, astonishing the onlookers as no magic was used to ignite it. The crowd erupts in cheers, praising the magic weapon's incredible power. The young man beams with admiration, imagining himself wielding such a weapon. The maid and a girl with twin buns tease a fire spirit, while the young man urges everyone to stop fighting and hurry to Zacchus's workshop. The young man strides confidently away, raising a fist in determination. A rugged man watches him leave, his expression tense as he questions if the young man just mentioned Zacchus, hinting at the significance of that name. Approaching a worn-down stone cottage surrounded by trees, the young man wonders if this is Zacchus's blacksmith shop. The girl beside him doubts it, calling the place run down, but he insists this is what people call charm. He knocks on the door, asking if Zacchus is home. The maid and the other girl sense a human presence inside, dismissing the idea that Zacchus might be away. The door is unlocked, so the young man opens it cautiously, apologizing if Zacchus is on break and explaining he wants to request a weapon. Suddenly, a loud crash startles him. Peeking inside, he sees an axe lodged in the wall and asks who is there. Inside, a rugged man with a beard and apron sits at a table, opening a bottle with a weary expression. The young man nervously introduces himself as Kahaku from Alex Tamer Guild and repeats his request for a new weapon. The man slams the table with the bottle, demanding to know if Kahaku is a hunter. Kahaku nervously confirms, but the man bluntly tells him to fuck off. The young man confirms if the gruff blacksmith is Zacchus, surprised by the blunt response telling him to go home. Zacchus turns away, gripping a large axe tightly, and bitterly declares his hatred for hunters from the bottom of his heart. Zacchus lunges forward, brandishing the axe and shouting that hunters are the people he hates most. The young man scrambles backward in fear as the axe crashes through the door behind him. Outside, a protective defensive field surrounds the maid, the dog, and the young man, shielding them from harm. The maid spreads her arms to maintain the barrier, while the dog and another girl react with shock and anger at Zacchus's rude outburst. The young man kneels, overwhelmed by the confrontation. The maid anxiously asks if the young man is all right, but he remains slumped on the ground, clearly emotionally shaken. She urges him to cheer up, insisting they don't need to rely on Zacchus and that better blacksmiths must exist elsewhere, while the dog contemplates harshly biting Zacchus to death but is advised against it. At the Flammeln bar, a somber mood hangs as Kahaku feels down, with the maid and the dog nearby reflecting on Zacchus's reputation as the best blacksmith in the country. Kahaku wonders why Zacchus hates hunters so much, and a rugged man asks if Kahaku is a customer of Zacchus, confirming the young man's connection. The muscular man introduces himself as Kodari and advises Kahaku to give up on Zacchus. Noting he was just turned away while drinking, Kahaku expresses interest in Zacchus's work, having heard he was the best blacksmith. Kodari explains that Zacchus's swords were highly valued, worth 1 platinum coin each, surprising Kahaku. Kodari reveals Zacchus destroyed all the 1 platinum coin swords, leaving none available. Kahaku is shocked by this and asks why. Kodari offers to explain further, showing a gold coin and preparing to share more details. Kodari warns Kahaku not to tell anyone what he is about to reveal. Kahaku promises to keep it secret. Kodari asks Kahaku's age, learning he just turned 20. He then reveals that Zacchus had a son who would be about Kahaku's age if alive, but he died 3 years ago. Zacchus' son, Dacus, became a swordsman at 13 and joined the battle guild as a hunter. However, Zacchus initially refused to accept this dangerous path. The father and son argued nightly over it. Eventually, after another fight, the son left home. Zacchus then spent his days reading the guild's newspaper. He was likely worried because the newspaper listed many deaths. One day, something happened. Dacus' name appeared in the paper. His body was brought in later that day, but the key point was yet to be revealed. He examined the body and recognized a sword wound on his son's chest. It was clear the wound was caused by a human, not a demon, though it looked like a hunter killed him. Zakis knew by the wound that it was the sword he himself had forged that killed his son. Kahaku reacts in shock. He explains that as blacksmiths, they can never mistake a sword wound for anything else. Skilled craftsmen can identify the weapon by the slash marks. Someone like Zakis would have figured this out immediately, which is why he told Kahaku to give up. Zakis explains that because of his son who became a hunter and the hunter who killed his son, Zakis believes he killed his own son and resents himself for it. He can no longer swing his hammer, the weight of this truth presses down on him silently. Kahaku is asked if he believes what Zakis said. He admits uncertainty but plans to visit Asursan at the guild once they return. They discuss Asursan's party reaching Raison Mine shortly after it was declared a dangerous zone, speculating they must have a way to move quickly. At the Flamel Tamer's Guild, a formal exchange takes place in the reception room due to the large sum of money involved. The amount includes 1 platinum coin and 80 gold coins for 900 kilograms of high-quality iron ore. Surprising Kahaku, the market price for iron ore is explained, and the next payment is prepared. Kahaku notices that the tray placed next to his is identical to his own, causing him to panic. The guild staff smiles and begins explaining the conversion for the magic crystal, detailing the market price and the total platinum coins for 300 kilograms of it, plus 80 copper coins for completing the mining request at Raison Mine. Kahaku nervously thanks her as she offers to put the coins in a separate bag. He hesitates, staring at the heavy bags of money, wondering what to do with it all. Suddenly, he shakes off the thought, telling himself now is not the time for this. Bowing politely, he excuses himself, determined to reach the battle guild within 5 minutes if he runs. A young woman calls after him, pleading for him to wait. The young woman watches anxiously as the door closes behind him, saying they are still not done yet. Outside, he approaches the Grand Battle Guild building, its imposing gates guarded by statues and sentries. Upon arrival, he grimaces at the smell of alcohol and cigarettes lingering in the air. A girl deploys a deodorant field, and he thanks her quietly. The atmosphere turns rowdy as a fight breaks out nearby, with insults flying between 2 men. He wonders if he'll be able to find a Sursan in such a place. Suddenly, a man calls out to him, noting he doesn't look familiar. A hooded figure offers him a bag containing an ultimate medicine that promises to instantly heal fatigue, but the man declines firmly. Another man approaches, tapping his shoulder and urging him to look. The man notices 2 others smirking nearby. He realizes the man is from the Tamer's Guild, and the others whisper about him, clearly recognizing his affiliation. He worries that if he doesn't find a Sursan soon, he won't last much longer, spotting a cheerful young man waving at him. He thinks maybe this is a good guy. The young man suggests they look for the receptionist to ask if a Sursan is available. Suddenly, a large figure blocks his path, warning him this is not the Tamer's Guild. He nervously denies being lost. The man offers to walk him home but demands the contents of his precious-looking bag in exchange. Panic rises as the man laughs, suggesting he can even leave his clothes behind. The crowd around them laughs along. The man pulls him into a tight embrace, and the young man realizes this is a bad pattern. Nearby, a group mocks the young man, calling for his pet to bite their heads off. They laugh cruelly, confirming their suspicion. The young man tries to explain he only wants to talk to someone from the guild, but the crowd jeers, warning him not to be shy. He fears being branded a criminal for causing trouble in another guild. The crowd ridicules him, calling him a disgrace to the Battle Guild for knowing a small fry tamer like him. One man grabs his hair, taunting him while apologizing sarcastically for being a disgrace himself. A tense crowd parts as a tall, serious man with sharp eyes and a sword approaches, drawing everyone's attention. His gaze is cold and unwavering, causing a ripple of unease among the onlookers. A woman steps forward, addressing the crowd and demanding an explanation for the disturbance. She reveals the man as her precious guest and asks what is happening, while others nervously explain they didn't know he was her guest and apologize awkwardly. The man scolds the group for having so much free time that they choose to bother him, his expression darkening. He turns to the young man beside him, acknowledging that he came to see him as soon as possible, catching the young man off guard. The serious man suddenly smiles warmly, telling the young man it makes him happy. Overwhelmed, the young man bursts into tears of joy, overwhelmed by the sense of security and relief he feels in the presence of this man. A man with glasses enters a room, lamenting how the quality of the Battle Guild has declined. He instructs Cole to look up some names and promises to report the matter to the guild master later. Seated across from Cole and a young man named Kahaku. The man asks Kahaku if he is looking to join the Battle Guild. Kahaku nervously denies this, saying he is actually there to ask something. The man with glasses and a muscular man listen intently as Kahaku is told about a hunter named Dakis who passed away a few years ago. Cole is ordered to soundproof the room just in case. Kahaku quietly acknowledges this, his expression tense as a cup of tea sits on the table. The conversation turns to why Zakasan, presumably related to Dacus, could no longer fight. Kahaku is asked if he knows what kind of person Dacus was. The man with glasses and the muscular man stand nearby while Cole responds. They recall that Dacus had the potential to become a mithril rank hunter like them. The men reflect on Dacus's character, describing him as remarkable, bold, lively, and adored by everyone. They admit he lived his life in a hurry, including themselves in that judgment, despite wanting to become stronger. Dacus also took on bronze rank or mining requests in his spare time, showing his dedication and hard work. He struggles to believe someone like Dacus could be betrayed by a fellow hunter, and the other confirms this is exactly what he's thinking. He admits it quietly. The man explains that 5 members, including Dacus, were sent by the guild to destroy a certain organization, prompting a shocked question about this group. The man names the organization Gurenkai and asks if he has heard of it. He apologizes for the question, but the other insists it's all right. The man explains Gurenkai is an underground group hidden from public view. The man details that Gurenkai worships the fire spirit and kidnaps children under 15 monthly, burning them alive as a ritual, calling it a deranged cult. The other listens, expression blank, as the man's words paint a grim picture. The fire spirit Claire reacts with disbelief and denial, insisting she would never accept such a cruel form of prayer and claims to be the only fire spirit in existence. The other urges Claire to turn herself in, but he believes Claire wouldn't do such a thing. He questions if Gurenkai was destroyed, suspecting the cult might be acting independently. The man confirms they received a report that the enemies escaped. The young man reacts with disbelief, refusing to accept it. The man insists there's no way they failed with Dacus present, but admits Dacus was betrayed, though betrayed isn't the exact word. The man reveals all members who accompany Dacus were actually part of Gurenkai. The young man listens tensely as the man explains Dacus suffered 4 injuries to his back from a surprise attack, then was cut from the front, receiving a fatal blow. The young man asks when they discovered the enemies were Gurenkai members. The man answers it was about 6 months after the incident. The young man's shock deepens as the man places a hand on his shoulder, calling him by name. The man offers a faint smile, stating this is all they know, but asks if there's anything else the young man wants to ask. The young man stammers a refusal, and the scene closes on a quiet cup of tea and a peaceful town view. Zakasan was the only one aware of the incident before it was revealed to be caused by Gurenkai. Someone from the guild should have explained the truth, but Zakus remains in a troubled state, unreachable. This lingering misunderstanding explains his deep hatred toward hunters. The woman asks the young man if he wants to clear up Zakasan's misunderstanding. He nervously agrees, knowing it means confronting the past. She warns it won't be a simple task, but he must try. She states there is only one possibility. The ghost-infested zone south of Brumand Kingdom, the site of the Devil's Den full raid. The young woman and the dog face a relentless wave of ghosts attacking one after another. Claire shouts for help, overwhelmed by the constant assault. The woman explains ghosts are weak to fire and light magic, and despite his weak power, the young man is the only one who can hold the line. As more ghosts approach, Claire launches a fiery attack, warning them to remember this moment with fierce determination in her eyes. Fireworks explode in the night sky with a dazzling display called Prominence. The young man, the woman, and the dog watch in awe, praising Claire's incredible effort, though she modestly insists it's nothing. The young man notes that thanks to her, they can now see the ground more clearly, but a dark presence lingers. The woman confirms they need the item drop from the strongest ghost-type demon, the Lich, whose ominous figure appears in the forest. The woman explains that although liches are supposed to be immortal, they do have weaknesses and Fenrir will handle it swiftly. The young man accepts this, though he feels conflicted, acknowledging some might call him a hypocrite for getting involved. He also confirms the calculations about the ghost's magic stone are accurate. Memories flash of a muscular man struggling and crying, while the young man resolves not to abandon those suffering before his eyes. Mounted on Fenrir, the woman urges him onward under the crescent moon, determined to face the challenge ahead. The young man asks Sophia about the Lich's weakness, recalling her advice to leave it to Fenrir. She explains the Lich's bones are harder than steel, and its head is 3 times stronger. The Lich's skeletal face confirms, it's the head. Realization dawns on the young man as she reveals the Lich originates from an immortal wizard and sage, and by destroying the source of its knowledge, the head, they can defeat it. He freezes, shocked by the implication. The Lich cheerfully thanks them for the food, but Fenrir snaps fiercely at it, breaking the Lich's jaw with a powerful bite. The young man and Sophia watch in stunned silence as Fenrir crushes the Lich's head. Despite the brutal jaw strength, Fenrir's action is necessary. The young man nervously thanks Fenrir, who responds with a cheerful really. The Lich, now reduced to ash, lies defeated. The young man and Sophia exchange glances, acknowledging the victory. Sophia presents the young man with the lich's magic stone they were searching for. He accepts it with gratitude, quietly saying thank you as he clenches his fist, steeling himself for what lies ahead. Under a crescent moon hanging in the night sky, the young man resolves firmly, declaring they will head to Zakasan's place. Surrounded by dark trees, he stands alone, contemplating what he must convey to Zakas after securing the magic stone. A man stands silently before a simple grave in the forest, his back to the viewer. His sharp gaze suddenly narrows, catching a sound nearby. Turning, he demands, "What do you want?" from a figure approaching behind him. The younger man steps forward, expressing condolences and mentioning he has heard about the man's son. He insists he is here to clear up a misunderstanding and not to blame the hunters. The older man, tense and brooding, tells him to leave him alone. Nearby, a woman urges others to stay put, noting that the man named Kahaku seems different than before. The younger man admits he is being nosy but cannot leave the older man alone, explaining it looked like he was in pain. Suddenly, the older man grabs him fiercely, his expression fierce and pained. The older man demands if the younger one even knows what his son felt when he died. Clenching his shirt tightly, he reveals the deep pain of losing his son. His eyes filled with anguish as the grave and offerings lie behind him. The older man lashes out, accusing the younger one that hunters like him who abandoned his son know nothing. He shouts, "Nothing!" with a clenched fist, his pain and anger overwhelming. The younger man struggles to defend himself, noting that if the older man truly believed a hunter killed his son, he would have said his son was murdered. Instead, he called him abandoned. The younger man presses on, asking if the older man has discovered the truth, that the one who killed his son isn't a hunter. The older man, shocked, tries to dismiss it as a figure of speech, bitterly calling hunters a bunch of crap. The older man then turns to a third person, handing over a wrapped sword and saying his son now needs a better weapon as a swordsman. He asks that when the sword is given to his son, it be told as a present from him. The young swordsman smiles gently, understanding. The older man faces the younger one again, declaring his son died surrounded by a bunch of scumbags. The older man admits there are some scumbags among hunters but refuses to accept that all hunters are worthless. The younger man shouts fiercely that hunters are not a bunch of crap. Leaving the older man shocked, the younger man silently affirms his identity as a swordsman. The younger man explains that since his divine job is swordsman, he cannot become a blacksmith but promises that once taught, he could be a skilled blacksmith without risking his life. The older man demands he stop the worthless talk and prepare to come to the workshop once he understands. The younger man insists he is serious, but the older man questions him. The older man's expression softens as he realizes the younger man's words are not worthless. The younger man stands firm, his resolve clear. He calls out to the older man by name, "Zakasan," catching his attention. The younger man reveals that everyone admired Zakas's son and that had he lived, he could have become a mithril plate hunter. He adds that the son was in a hurry to become stronger, a fact unknown to others. Zakas looks on, surprised and contemplative as the younger man quietly states that this is the only thing nobody knows yet. He reveals an item called Lich's magic stone, explaining it allows someone who has lost a loved one to temporarily call back their soul and speak to them. He urges the older man to use it if he has something to say to his son, adding that there's no need to ask why the son was in a hurry. The older man hesitates but accepts the stone, deciding not to use it if unnecessary. The younger man reflects silently, regretting not having talked to his son before he died. He wonders if it's truly possible to speak to him again through the stone, holding it with cautious hope. A magical aura swirls around them as the older man activates the stone. Both watch in stunned silence as the son's spirit begins to materialize, glowing faintly in the clearing. The older man's expression shifts from shock to awe. The son appears fully, calling out, "Dad." The older man bows deeply, apologizing for not listening, not being there during hard times, and for failing to protect him. The son's presence fills the air with a heavy, emotional weight as the father takes a step forward, overwhelmed with remorse. The son kneels, head bowed, as the father places a comforting hand on his shoulder, tears streaming down his face. The son apologizes, admitting he kept talking about choosing his own path but ended up dead before his father. He pleads for forgiveness and asks the father to tell him something. The father, overwhelmed with emotion, insists it's not the son's fault. The son reflects on why he chose to become a swordsman, confessing he always wanted to be like his father. He praises the father's weapons as the best in the world. The son realizes that despite his divine job as a swordsman, no matter how hard he tries, he'll never reach his father's level. The father looks up at him, tears still falling, as the son speaks with a bittersweet smile. The son offers to help with his divine job, asking what he can do. He understands that the materials for magic weapons are mainly iron or in magic stone, and that better quality materials make better weapons. He recalls the father actively taking or mining requests, concluding that gaining experience and strength will allow him to reach dangerous zones and obtain better materials. He holds a cloth-wrapped object, tears welling as he recalls his dream of his father crafting the best sword in the world. He believes that with the finest materials, that dream could come true. Turning to the young man before him, he asks his name. The young man hesitates, then replies, Kahaku. The man nods, affirming the name. Kahaku asks if the man can help make his dream come true. Aware it's a big request, the man acknowledges Kahaku can see them in his spirit form, and he admits that phantasmatamers really do exist. Despite this, he clarifies he isn't here for that reason. Nearby, others excitedly affirm Kahaku's desire for a sword, encouraging him. His gaze sharpens as he realizes the man is the one he's been seeking. The man smiles quietly, while another older man watches solemnly. The muscular man then asks Kahaku the same question he was asked earlier, signaling a mutual understanding forming between them. The older man, with a serious expression, speaks of his son, then asks if Kahaku would like to help with their shared dream. Kahaku, moved, bows deeply and pleads for their forgiveness. Saying he is all right now, the muscular man watches him with a soft, hopeful expression, cementing their bond and shared purpose. The young man earnestly pledges to help both of them achieve their dreams, his determination clear. The muscular man and the bearded man exchange a meaningful look, their expressions softening. A glowing light begins to emanate from the young man's hand, filling the space with a gentle radiance. The muscular man announces that the time has come, and the bearded man nods, grateful they could talk. The young man smiles brightly, thanking them both. The bearded man looks on with a tender gaze, and the young man quietly calls him Dad, deepening their bond. The young man, now alone, offers a heartfelt wish for a long life. He stands before a glowing, ethereal light rising from a gravesite in the forest. The scene fades with the quiet promise of their dreams transcending time. The muscular man apologizes for hitting Kahaku, who quickly assures him it's all right and invites him to call him simply Kahaku. The man smiles, feeling more comfortable with the informal address, and agrees. Suddenly, a young man calls out to Kahaku, drawing the attention of Asura-san, Cole-san, and Ron-san, who all appear solemn. Kahaku asks why everyone has gathered here, and the group replies that they come every year on this day. The muscular man explains that today marks the anniversary of his son's death. The group stands quietly, the weight of the moment settling in as the man looks toward a gravesite adorned with flowers and a bottle. The muscular man thanks everyone for coming and expresses gratitude despite feeling he has been rude. He admits he blamed them stubbornly for his son's death, but now realizes they weren't strong enough to prevent it. The group bows deeply in apology, while Kahaku listens intently, feeling the sincerity of their remorse. Kahaku, overwhelmed, apologizes deeply, saying they could have made it in time. His eyes widen with emotion as he struggles to express the weight of his feelings, trailing off with a quiet, also, hinting at more to come. The muscular man bows deeply, expressing heartfelt thanks for taking care of his son. The group stands solemnly, holding flowers, their faces reflecting quiet respect and sorrow. The man reveals he was able to talk to his son thanks to a magic stone, which Kahaku brought to him. The others react with surprise, questioning if he defeated a lich, but the man humbly credits his companions. The bald man challenges him to spar, impressed by his strength. The group prepares to leave, with the muscular man heading back to the workshop with Kahaku. The others decline, having reports to make to the guild. The man playfully ruffles Kahaku's hair, and the group shares a rare moment of lightness. The man with glasses reflects on how he hasn't seen the muscular man's face so relaxed in years. The man with glasses notes Kahaku's visible relief, and the muscular man agrees quietly. They stand together, looking toward the horizon as leaves fall, signaling a hopeful new beginning. The young man marvels at the blacksmith's workshop, impressed by the place where the master works. The blacksmith apologizes for the dust and promises to clean and check his equipment immediately. The young man is startled when a maid calls the blacksmith master. The blacksmith's expression shifts as he acknowledges the young man by name, Zaka-san, and his hand rests on his workbench, reflecting on the time past. The young man and the maid offer to help with the workshop chores, suggesting the blacksmith leave maintenance and cleaning to his familiar. The blacksmith agrees, and the maid bows. Ready to take on inventory duties, the blacksmith, sweating nervously, admits he sold off his stockpile of iron ore and magic crystals to pay for liquor, but hopes some remain somewhere. The young man encourages him to check thoroughly. The blacksmith examines the iron ore and magic crystals brought by the young man and his companions, praising their purity and quality. The young man and a small familiar beam with pride at the compliment. The blacksmith asks if the young man will help make his dream come true, and the young man agrees, determined. He picks up a chunk of, or, ready to begin. The blacksmith declares his goal to forge the best sword in the world. The young man is surprised but excited, and the blacksmith asks if he can drink a little. The young man happily agrees, and the blacksmith urges him to start thinking of a plan now that the decision is made. The blacksmith kneels by a hidden compartment in the floor, ready to begin the work ahead. The blacksmith holds a bottle of liquor, declaring today a great day and hoping his son will allow him this drink. The young man, surprised, asks if they are going to discuss matters over drinks. The blacksmith smiles with quiet resolve. Night falls over the town as the young man nods in agreement. Inside a grand room, the Battle Guild Master Leon Leverett acknowledges Zacchus's return to work and praises Asura for his efforts. Asura humbly denies being the one who saved Zacchus, insisting it was someone else. Leon looks serious as he asks for confirmation, and Asura replies affirmatively. The young man reflects on the incredible feats, noting that the defeated monsters were both mithril plate level, including a death spider and a lich. Despite the unbelievable stories, he struggles to accept every detail. Leon tells Asura he will accompany him to see the boy later, and Asura agrees with a bow. Alone, the young man contemplates the existence of the legendary Tamer, disbelief washing over him. He gazes out the window at the moonlit sky, then turns to a thick book titled Heroic Tales, his expression thoughtful and determined. Under a bright sky, the young man tells Zacchus to handle the rest, and the rugged blacksmith confidently agrees. Zacchus's eyes widen as he gazes into the roaring forge fire, feeling the weight of the moment. A glowing message appears, revealing a holy flame that will never extinguish, entrusted with a portion of power from the fire spirit Claire. Zacchus thanks the spirit warmly, then wraps a cloth around his head, feeling grateful for the clarity Kahaku helped him find. As Zacchus works the forge, he reflects on how a long-standing misunderstanding has been resolved. Promising to give everything he has, the scene pulls back to show the peaceful town below, with a voice silently thanking the one who gave the answer. The familiar clang of Zacchus's hammer echoes through the market, catching the attention of workers and passers-by. They confirm Zacchus has returned to work, while one watches with a mix of surprise and concern. Zacchus grips a newly forged blade, muttering a quiet good grief as he resumes his craft. A rugged blacksmith, sweat on his brow, strikes a glowing piece of metal with a hammer. A man with spiky hair and a faint beard tells him sharply that he's late. The blacksmith looks up, slightly nervous but determined, as sparks fly from the anvil with each powerful blow. A few days later at the inn, the young man gasps in surprise, hearing the sword is finished. A maid announces a letter from Zacchus has just arrived, sparking excitement. He eagerly asks if they should go right away, recalling how he's already been practicing his one-handed sword in anticipation. The scene ends with a hopeful thought. Finally, outside a rustic house, a voice declares the time has come. Inside, the rugged blacksmith confirms to the young man that his sword is ready. Zacchus invites him to see it, and the young man, wide-eyed, asks if he can hold it. Zacchus welcomes his thoughts on the blade, presenting it as without a doubt the best sword in the world. The young man holds the sword, amazed at how light it feels, barely noticing its weight. Zacchus explains he finished the sword considering the young man's needs, making it the best weapon he can handle. He acknowledges the young man's strength as a tamer isn't that of a swordsman. The young man, touched, calls out Zacchus's name, and Zacchus encourages him to try pulling the sword out. The young man draws the sword, awestruck by its gleaming blue blade. The maid and a girl nearby admire its beauty, calling it the blue sword. The young man's expression is filled with wonder as he holds the shining weapon, ready to wield it. The young man asks if the sword is a magic weapon and if it has any special effect. The blacksmith confirms it has the effect called cutter from the appraisal results. He suggests showing it rather than explaining. The blacksmith places a large stone on the table and instructs the young man to hold the sword and keep his eyes on the stone. The young man nervously agrees, focusing intently. The blacksmith tells him to push the sword down on the stone where a glowing red line appears. The young man obeys and slices through the stone along the red line, cutting it cleanly in two. Shock and amazement fill his face. The blacksmith explains the sword's true strength isn't just its sharpness but that it reveals the opponent's weakness when held and aimed at them. The sword shows the answer to defeating the enemy. The young man marvels at how easily the sword cut the stone with little force. The blacksmith adds that if the answer can be cut, even hard or armor, and dragon scales can be sliced as easily as slime. The young man asks if the sword has a name. The blacksmith confirms it does, explaining it is a sacred weapon from long ago, said to have the same cutter effect. The sword is called the Answerer, known as Fragarak. The blacksmith solemnly reveals the sword's name to the young man. The young man repeats it quietly to himself. Fragarak. The blacksmith refuses payment, calling it a token of their friendship, but then asks for a favor instead. The blacksmith tells the young man to announce to everyone that he's back. The young man bows deeply, promising to do so. The blacksmith chuckles and puts an arm around him, encouraging him to stay strong. The young man reflects that this is also for Dacus. The blacksmith smiles warmly, urging the young man to let the world know his name. The young man smiles back with determination. Outside, the sun shines brightly over the mountains as the young man answers with a confident, yes. The young man is asked if he will take a request and go fight. He happily agrees, excited to finally have his first weapon. He acknowledges that bronze plate rank has few subjugation requests but wants to get a feel for it as soon as possible. The crowd murmurs as he prepares to step forward. The young man notices a large crowd gathered inside, but senses something off. He asks what's happening, and a companion explains that Saria-chan hasn't been feeling well lately. Shock hits him as he realizes it's the same Saria-san he knows, who seems sad but not sick. Others mention she's been sighing a lot recently, deepening the concern. A woman with a long braid sighs heavily, pondering that there must be a reason for Saria's behavior. The group nearby jokes about having a crush on the receptionist, but the young man warns them to stop making fun. Despite the teasing, he remains troubled by the situation. The young man asks if he should take a request now or later, but the woman's attention snaps sharply to his voice. She looks surprised and emotional, recognizing him. He feels awkward and uncertain as she reacts strongly, calling out his name with urgency. The woman rushes toward him, demanding why he hasn't shown up for days. She reveals she has been waiting to share some critical, important news with him. The young man, confused, asks what kind of news it is. While the crowd around them watches tensely, she insists he is the reason for the news, heightening the tension and anticipation. The woman bursts out with excitement, shouting that she has happy news, shocking the young man. A sharp-eyed woman demands to know since when the two have been connected. While others watch silently, tense, the young man stammers, feeling the crowd's misunderstanding growing from her words. He pleads with the woman to explain the news clearly, urging her to speak up so everyone can understand. She hesitates, and he anxiously insists she say it now, desperate to clear up the confusion. The woman fidgets nervously, struggling to find the right words as the crowd waits expectantly. Her expression softens, revealing vulnerability beneath her hesitation. Finally, she admits with a shy smile that this isn't the appropriate place to say it, trailing off uncertainly, but with a gentle warmth in her eyes. The young man's expression turns blank, his eyes wide and unfocused as if struggling to process what he's just heard. His hands open slightly in front of him, palms up, as if searching for an explanation or trying to grasp the weight of the situation. The silence stretches, emphasizing his stunned state, the black background swallowing the space around him and highlighting his inner turmoil. In the Tamer Guild reception room, a large wolf sleeps peacefully while the young man slumps forward, exhausted. A maid and another woman watch him silently, their intense gaze making him visibly uncomfortable. The woman remarks on his tired appearance, prompting him to reveal it's because someone publicly endangered her life. A small girl reacts with surprise and concern at this revelation. The woman quickly identifies the culprit as him, vowing to give a stern warning later. The young man, startled, asks about the critical happy news she mentioned. She confirms it and cheerfully offers him something, while he looks on with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. He notices an envelope on the table and recognizes it immediately, his shock growing. The young man recalls seeing it before and mutters disbelief. As he opens the envelope, the maid and the woman quietly congratulate him, their expressions warm and sincere. Inside is a distinguished silver plate badge. After the conversation, a man explains that the badge was meant to be given after the conversion, but the young man left too soon. The woman happily announces he is now the fastest member ever promoted to silver plate in the guild's history. The maid praises him, expressing her unwavering belief in his abilities. The young man, overwhelmed, mutters bitterly that they are all liars, while the two women smile playfully behind him. The young man sits quietly, doubting he deserves the special treatment despite only gathering herbs and iron ore. The woman explains that the quality and quantity of his work surpassed his current rank, and after discussing with the guild master, she decided to promote him to silver plate. She notices his unhappy expression, but he denies it. She reassures him gently that this is not a special treatment. She continues, explaining he has earned more than enough credit as a tamer, and this promotion could also benefit the guild. She illustrates the rank system, showing how fewer people occupy higher ranks due to a chronic manpower shortage. She elaborates that those capable would benefit the guild more by taking on difficult tasks, Even if it means raising their ranks as special exceptions. The young man listens carefully as she praises his and his phantasma's great job. She urges him to be proud of this achievement. He looks at the silver plate badge in his hands with a mix of awe and pride. The woman offers him a silver rank request, which he gratefully accepts. She pins the badge on his chest, complimenting how well it suits him. He explains he has never taken a subjugation request before and wants to practice with his sword. She asks about his sword, and he proudly shows his magic sword made by Zakis-san, smiling with renewed confidence. The woman suddenly grabs the young man, startling him as she exclaims the full name of the master craftsman Zakis Royman, which he had never known. She questions how he could have been inactive for 3 years, pressing him for details. He nervously tries to explain, unsure if he should report everything, while she demands to know what he means by a lot of things. He hesitates, about to reveal the truth. The woman assures him she will keep the matter confidential but insists the guild master must be informed. He confirms the request is to kill goblins, and she asks him to wait while they verify it. He reads the request carefully. Defeat a group of 10 goblins in the wilderness west of Mirazona village. A nearby woman advises him to wear more modest clothing for the mission. The woman explains Mirazona village is one of the poorest in the region and suggests avoiding clothes that stand out. The man, overwhelmed, acknowledges her advice and prepares to leave, bidding farewell. The scene shifts to a peaceful village surrounded by nature, signaling their destination. Approaching Mirazona village, the young man wonders if this is the place. He observes villagers happily working and socializing, finding the village more vibrant than expected. His phantasma companion confirms no abnormalities in her scan, reassuring him as they enter the lively community. The maid explains that a supernatural power is likely involved, causing some phantasma-related events to remain undetected even after scanning. The young man contemplates this quietly, then agrees to investigate after completing the request. He stands before a peaceful rural scene, murmuring the word, phantasma. The young man's companion, a large wolf-like creature, calls out that the goblins have been found. He rushes forward, cautiously observing the rocky terrain. He confirms there are 10 goblins moving tightly as the request described. Facing the goblins, the young man reflects on his lack of experience cutting moving targets with a sword. The maid offers her assistance, asking if he would like help. He looks surprised but listens intently. The maid asks him to recall his fight with Tawa-sama, explaining that tamers usually fight alongside their servants, not alone. She notes that only a few monsters can use enchantment magic, making this method uncommon. The young man and his phantasma companion sit quietly, considering her words. The young man resolves that he can fight with everyone's help, recalling the support around him. He nods with determination and quietly asks for assistance. His eyes steady as he agrees, yes, please. He and the maid prepare to synchronize their efforts, the maid activating an enchantment called Enchant Fencer. She warns him that he won't be able to use any swordplay since he's not a swordsman, a fact he accepts with a nod. Nearby, the goblins watch warily as he stands ready. The young man focuses, visualizing how to move and swing his sword effectively against the charging goblins. His steps are deliberate as he anticipates their attack. While the maid watches with a calm, confident smile, his companions, the wolf and the maid, show surprise and encouragement. As the goblins rush forward, he launches into action with a powerful, sweeping strike, cutting through the enemies with precision. The wolf barks excitedly, and the maid hovers nearby, ready to support as the battle intensifies. The young man grips his sword, feeling the power of the enchant fencer magic for the first time. He watches the fallen goblins scattered on the ground, realizing the impact of his strike. His companions cheer him on, amazed by his skill. While he humbly thanks them all, he reflects on how he's starting to achieve what he couldn't before, encouraged by their support. He recalls how he used to only stand back and watch, powerless. But now with everyone's help, he feels confident. His companions, the wolf and the maid, smile warmly. Sharing his hope, he envisions a future where he can fight alongside them, stepping forward with determination. The young man declares they will be able to fight side by side. His companions ask if he is heading to Mirazona village, and he confirms with a firm yup. Together, they walk forward through a peaceful forest path, ready to face what lies ahead. The wolf suddenly alerts Ko that someone is approaching, catching the group's attention. Ko and the maid look surprised as a figure steps forward through the grass. The newcomer beams warmly, waving and announcing himself as Kahakukuin. Ko's expression shifts to shock and recognition as he calls out, stunned to see Asura-san. Asura-san explains he's here to survey the area, surprising Ko, who never expected to see him here. They shake hands as Ko asks if this has anything to do with why the land has become so rich. Asura confirms he's a swordsman and worries about the sacred land of swordsmen, revealing he won't rest easy if something bad happens there. Ko's eyes widen at the mention of the swordsman's sacred land. Asura suggests Ko might want to join him, explaining he's been here often but this is the first time he's seen such a situation. He plans to visit Mirazona village to learn more. Ko agrees to go together, asking if it's alright, and Asura smiles warmly. He then asks Ko to tell him about the sword on their way there, extending his hand. Asura holds up a shining sword, praising Zaka-san's craftsmanship for its strength, lightness, and ease of handling. Ko thanks him for showing it. Asura wonders if he'll get one made for himself too. While Ko listens, suddenly, Asura considers asking Zaka-san to make 10 swords for him, shocking Ko. He notes the market price for each sword is 1 platinum coin, and that Zaka-san can afford to produce 10 without issue, leaving Ko amazed. Ko notices a huge tree that wasn't there the last time he visited. He tells Kahaku to wait while he goes to ask the nearby people about it. Kahaku agrees silently, watching Ko approach the flower field. He asks a woman named Sufia if the tree emits phantasma power, and she confirms it does. Ko wonders if the flower field around it is also nourished by the tree, and Sufia agrees. He realizes the power must be Gaia's. Ko reveals he knows a phantasma who can do this, surprising Sufia. The earth goddess Gaia appears, winking and smiling. Ko and Sufia react with surprise, questioning why she is here. Another woman explains Gaia is both a phantasma and a proper demon. Though people believe she is a god, Ko wonders what Gaia is doing here while Kahaku waits nearby. Ko explains the tree was planted 3 days ago by Her Majesty the Queen, calling it the Queen's miracle. The tree made the village rich and prosperous by growing faster than anything seen before. Ko notices strange writing carved into the tree's base and wonders what it means. The strange writing on the tree might be worth investigating. Even if no one can read it, Ko agrees, and they decide to visit the chief's house. Villagers eagerly offer to guide them, clearly impressed by Ko's charm. Kahaku silently notes Ko's handsome appeal as they prepare to leave. Walking through the village, Ko and Kahaku notice how the land and villagers seem transformed, richer and more prosperous. The villagers happily point out the chief's house, surprising Kahaku when they call him attendant. They knock on the door and are warmly welcomed inside. The village chief, an elderly man named Yusaku, greets them politely. Ko and Kahaku introduce themselves and are invited to sit. The chief asks if they came to discuss the sacred tree. Ko explains he heard the queen planted it, and the land flourished in just a few days. The chief confirms this, but Ko is skeptical about the queen having such divine power. He contemplates the mystery as they prepare to learn more. Ko insists they must see the strange writings carved at the base of the sacred tree, asking Yusaku if it's possible to have a look. The village chief agrees and says Mimilai will guide them there. Mimilai confirms and urges them to follow her. The sacred tree stands tall on a hill, surrounded by forest. Mimilai leads Ko, Kahaku, and Asura to the sacred tree. They marvel at its immense size, with Kahaku joking his neck hurts from looking up. Mimilai explains the area near the tree is off limits, but points out the location of the mysterious writings. The group approaches the carved runes on the tree's bark, studying them carefully. Mimilai confirms the inscriptions are an ancient rune code. The group listens as the maid deciphers the text, revealing it speaks of eternal peace as an endless illusion, embodied by the master swordsman. The inscription continues, describing the master swordsman followed by the king of illusion, and that the door to peace is now open. Asura warns it would be troublesome if Mimilai stayed here, so they decide to leave and return with her after sunset. Ko whispers something to Asura, catching his attention. Mimilai smiles modestly as Ko thanks her for bringing them here, saying now he can report back to the guild. The sun begins to set behind the trees. A cloaked figure arrives at the sacred tree, apologizing for the wait. The night sky sparkles above the massive tree. The young man explains his familiar deciphered the runes here. The cloaked figure confirms this, smiling. The young man invites him to place his hand on the tree. Lamenting he can't see the inscriptions himself, the cloaked figure, Phantasma, marvels at their wonder. Phantasma readies to interpret the writings, asking the young man to keep his hands still. The ancient runes reveal that eternal peace is an endless illusion. The inscription continues, stating the illusion is embodied by the master swordsman. The young man reads aloud that the master swordsman is followed by the king of illusion. The others watch intently, including a woman and a dog. The inscription explains conquering evil is a sacred polarity. The final line declares the door to peace is now open, shocking the young man. Suddenly, a radiant door bursts open from the tree. Phantasma warns Kahaku to stay back, and he obeys. The two brace themselves as the glowing portal pulses, their eyes locked on the mysterious gateway. A radiant door bursts open from the ancient tree, flooding the area with blinding light as the two figures stand frozen. Watching in awe, the younger man, sweat beading on his face, asks what they should do next. The cloaked figure meets his gaze with quiet resolve. The night sky looms above as the cloaked figure finally declares they should go forward. Two figures stand at the entrance of a rocky cave, the night sky visible beyond. A small, floating figure named Claire is asked to provide light, and she obliges. The cloaked man tells Kahaku to stay behind him just in case, and Kahaku agrees silently. Inside the cave, the cloaked man asks Kahaku about the meaning of the spell he just cast. Kahaku apologizes, explaining he only read what his familiar deciphered and doesn't know the details. The man offers to share his speculation, and Kahaku nervously agrees. A woman and Kahaku listen as he begins. The man explains that he believes Kahaku is the king of illusion, and he himself is the master swordsman. Kahaku asks why, and the man says he couldn't think of anyone else but Kahaku, the phantasma Tamer. The master swordsman is said to be followed by the illusion king. A dog reacts with surprise at the word king. The woman clarifies that the door opened because the king of illusion, Kahaku, cast the spell with the master swordsman, Asura. Beside him, Kahaku, overwhelmed, doubts his worthiness and wonders if following Asura makes him a king. He clutches his chest in frustration, declaring he is not worthy. The cloaked man asks if he is wrong about his interpretation, and Kahaku's familiar confirms he is right on point, suggesting Asura could become a detective. Asura considers this thoughtfully, explaining that conquering evil is a sacred polarity, meaning the door to peace is now open. He concludes this is the room to reach the sacred ground. Suddenly, Asura warns Kahaku to stay alert, and Kahaku responds nervously as a powerful force swirls around them. Kahaku's eyes widen in shock as the ground beneath them shifts violently. Kahaku senses something moving rapidly nearby, unsure if it is a person or a building. His vision blurs with the speed of passing scenery, overwhelmed by the rapid changes around him. The chaos settles, revealing a quiet village with two figures standing back to back, swords drawn and ready. Kahaku recognizes the place and gasps, realizing this is Mirazona village. The black-haired man reflects that this place must be the memory of the land, most likely Mirazona village in the past. The cloaked man and the younger one stand quietly, holding a sword. Suddenly, a dirty, tearful girl appears, wiping her eyes. The cloaked man rushes toward her, urgently asking if she is all right. The cloaked man kneels beside the crying girl, his expression tense and conflicted. He explains that this place is a memory of Mirazona village and that people and objects here cannot be interfered with in any way. The girl's eyes show pain as they all stand silently. The cloaked man laments that a child is hurting right in front of him, yet he cannot do anything. The black-haired man and the cloaked man recognize the girl as Ryugo, the sword saint. The black-haired man's familiar confirms this, explaining Ryugo's identity. The cloaked man's gaze sharpens as he processes this. The black-haired man recounts the legend of the sword saint Ryugo, who defeated an evil dragon that nearly destroyed the country and became a hero even after death. The younger man recalls reading about Ryugo as a child, admiring his training. The girl's presence contrasts with the legend, and a woman nearby remarks that despite his legend, Ryugo is still kind of a crybaby, causing the black-haired man to react with surprise. A woman tells Kahaku that even after becoming a swordsman, Ryugo struggled with his condition, often trying to run away from ordinary demons rather than fight. She adds that he was a womanizer, a poor spender, deeply in debt, and smelled like booze. Kahaku, sweating nervously, thinks to himself how glad he is that a Sursen can't hear these harsh truths. Kahaku wonders if the legend about Ryugo is a lie, but the woman insists it's all true. Another woman explains that Ryugo's strength was genuine but built on cowardice. Because of this, he prepared and trained himself to the death before fighting, which is the secret of his strength. He questions why Ryugo chose the way of the sword if he was such a coward. He recalls reading that Ryugo's tremendous training methods were mentioned in legends. Despite his divine job, Ryugo tried many times to abandon the sword's path because he disliked, hated, and resented swords, yet his talent with the sword wouldn't allow him to quit. He and the others notice Ryugo's sister has returned and is tending to him, asking if he's okay and offering to patch him up quickly. Kahaku warns his companion that some men have been following her, as two suspicious figures lurk behind trees nearby, watching them. The scenery shifts abruptly, startling them both. One urges the other to stop as they realize where they are. A young woman, clutching a wooden stick, pleads for them to stay away from her brother Ryugo. A man kneels over Ryugo, who lies injured, while another man taunts the young woman, asking if she wants to betray him too. The young woman trembles, gripping her stick tightly as she demands answers. The man in charge coldly orders his men to beat Ryugo, dismissing him as worthless but valuable for money. The injured Ryugo lies helpless, the young woman's desperate cries echoing. Ryugo weakly urges the young woman to run, But the man silences him harshly. The young woman's eyes widen in shock as Ryugo is violently restrained. Her hand falls limp, the bracelet slipping off as she gasps in horror. The young woman screams in anguish, swinging her stick wildly at the men holding Ryugo. The force of her attack is fierce, but the situation remains dire as she fights to protect her brother. A man with a bandage over his eyes complains about the sudden scream. Rubbing the back of his head, a young woman holding a wooden stick tells him to shut up. She swiftly lunges forward, striking the man with her stick. His eyes widen in shock as the attack lands. The man collapses to the ground while the young woman stands firm. Gripping her stick tightly, two observers watch the scene unfold. One noting an unusual presence from the young woman holding the stick. They wonder if it's because she had prior training, but she denies it. The man with the bandage watches closely as the young woman moves. Noting she moves like a complete amateur, he grips a small knife, preparing for what comes next. The young woman strikes fiercely, landing a powerful blow to the man's face. The narration reveals she has talent, marking the brutal beginning of Ryugo's harsh fate. The man's shocked expression lingers as the scene ends. The scenery shifts abruptly, catching their attention. They spot a young woman holding a wooden stick, kneeling beside an injured Ryugo. She calls out his name, desperation in her voice. The two men watch silently as the scene unfolds. The young man realizes the scenery changed again and asks Kahakukuin where to look. The other points toward the direction ahead, signaling where to focus next. They see a woman commanding Ryugo to kill a lizard man nearby. The woman calmly smokes a pipe, unfazed by the command. The young man notes how much time has passed. Recognizing the grown-up Ryugo, the woman and a man stand confidently. While the two observers watch from behind, the woman reacts with a simple comma, acknowledging their presence. The woman warns Ryugo that the lizard man is dangerous. Cautioning him seriously, Ryugo panics, fearing he will be crushed and die if he fights. The two observers exchange a glance. One muttering that this is definitely Ryugo. The other reacts with a nervous, "No," overwhelmed by Ryugo's fear. The woman questions when Ryugo will gain more confidence, praising his talent with the sword. She playfully taps his head with chopsticks, causing him to say, "Ow." She admits she wishes she had talent for attracting girls instead. The two observers ask if she is all right, both surprised by how different Ryugo is from their expectations. The woman gently comforts Ryugo, telling him it's all right and that he was never popular to begin with, smiling softly as he looks surprised. The lizard man angrily lashes out, calling his master heartless for forcing him to face reality. The woman calmly explains the creature noticed them because of the master's loud yelling. Ryugo clutches his head in panic, begging for the master to kill the beast soon. Fearing they will die otherwise, the woman remains composed, smoking a pipe, while Ryugo pleads desperately. The woman turns her back, telling Ryugo that strong men are popular with the ladies. Ryugo, annoyed, demands to know what she means, but she calmly sits on a rock, emphasizing her point with quiet confidence. Ryugo swiftly strikes the lizard man, cutting it down with ease. The two observers watch, one sarcastically calling Ryugo a sword genius while the other notes the scenery is about to change again. Ryugo responds hesitantly, still shaken. The woman softly asks Ryugo to call her by her name, Mio. As they stand together by the sea, Ryugo looks thoughtful, and the two share a quiet moment, the sun shining over the water, signaling a new understanding between them. Two figures stand close by the sea, their foreheads nearly touching in a tender moment as the sun glimmers on the water behind them. Nearby, two others watch, one excitedly pointing out the scenery changing again, while the other reflects on how the pair supported each other and eventually fell in love. The observer with the cloak assures he's fine now, while the other admits the man is just a pure soul wishing for happiness. The scene ends with a quiet question directed at Mio. Sitting side by side on the shore, one confesses an inability to like swords because they only bring strife. Despite the other's surprise, the first clarifies it's not hatred but a deeper conflict, asking if the other resents being taught swordsmanship. Mio corrects the assumption, hinting at a more nuanced feeling. The conversation deepens as the first reveals the one thing they do like about swords. It brought them together with Mio, a bond that will never change. Mio smiles warmly, softly affirming the truth of that sentiment, lightening the mood with a gentle laugh. The two observers stand before two swords planted in the ground, reflecting on the vow made that day never to wield swords again. They watch as the couple walks away hand in hand along the beach, the wind stirring around them, signaling a solemn yet hopeful farewell to the past. Two figures stand silently as a smiling woman watches over a seated man, who looks tense and alert. The woman gently touches the seated man's arm, offering comfort. The two standing figures exchange a glance, one of them noticing something strange. The younger one speaks, puzzled, as the surroundings begin to blur and shift unexpectedly. The two walk toward a forest path, the entrance marked by a tied sack dropped on the ground. One points ahead, identifying the forest as the way to Mirazona village. The long-haired man reacts with surprise, sensing something off. Suddenly, a figure runs toward them, shouting a familiar name urgently. Flames engulf buildings in the village as the two resolve to go help. They sprint toward the chaos, urgency in their steps. The man with the cloak insists they must join the rescue, and the younger one agrees, determination on his face. They rush into the burning village, where people scramble in panic. The long-haired man shouts in shock, questioning if time has stopped. The cloaked figure looks on with concern as the man collapses to the ground. Nearby, a struggle unfolds between a man and a woman. The younger man points out an invisible wall with writing on it, baffling them. The cloaked figure is called urgently, confusion and worry evident as they face the mysterious barrier. A glowing message reveals the future sword saint faces a desperate choice. Saving one will kill the other. The trial demands the challenger show their strength within 60 seconds. The cloaked figure reflects quietly. Realizing this is the sword saint's trial to prove worthiness, the younger man reacts with surprise, understanding the gravity of the situation. The cloaked figure contemplates the meaning of showing strength in such a dire moment. A flashback shows a man raising a knife over a helpless victim. The cloaked figure resolves to find a way out, pondering the need to demonstrate power, speed, and range. The cloaked figure watches the struggle, analyzing the numbers counting down as the attacker prepares to strike. He admits uncertainty but knows there is one crucial task he must accomplish. The younger man pleads for help, and the cloaked figure calmly instructs Kahakukuin to stand back. The cloaked figure studies the numbers and movements, recognizing the technique's proper form. He acknowledges why others call the attacker a genius, focusing intensely as the countdown nears its end. The countdown hits one as the cloaked figure grips his sword tightly, planting his armored foot firmly on the ground. He unleashes a powerful, sweeping slash that sends a shockwave rippling outward, matching the opponent's stance in perfect synchronization. Their blades clash with a resounding impact, sparks flying as the force sends the attacker sprawling backward. The younger man gasps in shock, realizing their slash is connected. The cloaked figure grimaces, reflecting that if only Ryugo had not forsaken the sword for a makeshift weapon, his fate might have been different. The cloaked figure imagines a future where Ryugo, armed properly, could have saved both himself and his sister, just as the sword saint did. He swings his blade with renewed determination, standing over the fallen sister. The harsh truth settles. Ryugo's improvised weapon couldn't keep pace with his talent, and that failure cost his sister's life. The younger man questions if this is why Ryugo couldn't abandon his sword despite everything. The cloaked figure confirms it, explaining that Ryugo's talent forced him to pick up his sword again, driven by the pain of losing someone dear and the regret that haunts him. The scene closes with Ryugo raising his sword, tears streaming, as he prepares to strike down the cause of his sorrow. After this event, Ryugo picks up his sword again, and then, he would live a hellish life until he finally became known as the Sword Saint. The young man stands solemnly, gripping his sword as flames engulf the village behind him. His eyes close briefly, steadying himself before turning to witness a woman being comforted by another. The woman clings tightly, tears falling as the other gently supports her. A radiant light surrounds the young man as voices declare his worthiness. He has proven himself worthy of the title Sword Saint by showing his true strength and saving everyone. The light intensifies, signaling the transfer of the Sword Saint's power. Symbols and glowing runes swirl around him as he absorbs the power, feeling its warmth spread through his hand. His fist clenches instinctively, the energy coursing through him. With quiet resolve, he vows to continue the legacy of Sword Saint Ryugo to the best of his ability. Standing tall, the young man declares that with this power, he will become the blade that saves everyone. Those watching are struck by his determination as he prepares to carry the burden and honor of the Sword Saint forward. A man with long hair smiles warmly, telling the young man before him that he's counting on him. The young man, serious and focused, listens intently. He reflects silently that the trial has come to an end, standing in a cavernous space. The young man is joined by a large wolf, a maid, and another figure, all facing a glowing mystical symbol on the wall. The young man receives a cloak from another, who says his familiar indicated the exit lies ahead. The man with the cloak confirms the trial is over but hints at something more. The young man snaps his fingers thoughtfully, then calls out the name Sword Saint Ryugo as they face a dark tunnel leading onward. The man with the cloak explains that Ryugo was revered as a heavenly being for his strength, but had endured much hardship in his past. He learned from his regrets and weaknesses, vowing not to repeat them. which is why he became strong and wields his sword with purpose. The young man listens closely, absorbing the weight of this legacy. The young man smiles, acknowledging that Ryugo was a human being just like them. The man with the cloak agrees quietly. A girl appears suddenly, concerned, asking if Kahaku is okay. The young man reflects that he's glad to have learned this truth. Something not written in any book, though a hint of unease lingers beneath his calm exterior. Tears stream down the young man's face as he is told he is crying. He quickly wipes them away, embarrassed, explaining it might be because he admired someone who endured such pain. The man with the cloak places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, expressing gratitude that they shared this understanding. The young man looks up, surprised, as the cloaked figure walks away toward a cliff edge, his cloak billowing in the wind. The cloaked man turns back with a warm smile, inviting the young man to move forward together. He admits he has always admired the same person, urging them to live life to the fullest. The young man eagerly reaches out, helped up by the cloaked figure, while a woman and a large familiar watch quietly nearby. The young man suddenly looks confused, asking what's wrong. The cloaked man smiles gently, and the young man notices the time has seemingly stopped again. The woman in a maid-like outfit appears, explaining that the maker of this trial is present. The young man's expression shifts to one of realization and concern. A radiant figure clad in dark armor appears, described as the strongest among phantasmas and unmatched in melee combat. The sword god, Raiga, the young man bows respectfully, addressing him as their king, Kahaku-sama, and expresses honor at meeting him. The armored figure steps forward, his presence commanding and awe-inspiring. Raiga introduces himself as the sword god, holding the strongest title among phantasmas. The young man and the maid express surprise that he is also a phantasma. Raiga politely tells the young man he need not kneel and to stand up. Raiga apologizes to Kahaku-sama for dragging him into this, admitting he once felt unnecessary but now understands there must be a reason. The young man recalls the phrase eternal peace from the writings on the tree. He confirms they need both him and Asura-san to accomplish eternal peace. The young man asks if the 4 people mentioned include someone he knows, but the other man refuses to reveal details. The maid questions if the world isn't peaceful enough now, but Raiga insists that peace is currently under threat. The maid asks if that is coming back, and Raiga confirms. The cloaked man explains Gaia is holding it back but the seal is weakening, making it possible for that to return at any time. The young man panics, denying knowledge of what they're talking about. While the maid, the familiar, and the young man listen intently, the elf-like woman states there are 3 races currently in the world. The young man learns the 3 main categories are human, demon, and demi-human. However, 3,000 years ago, a 4th race existed, the devil. The scene shifts to a quiet forest path as the young man contemplates this revelation. The maid confirms the devils are not extinct but sealed, surprising the young man and the familiar. The young man asks if the weakening seal means the devils will return, but the armored man warns the devils aren't the only ones sealed. The scene shifts to a dark cave where a shadowy figure looms. The voice warns the Devil King Sakua, the bane of the world and the worst of the worst, will soon return. The young man reacts in shock, questioning the mention of the Devil King. The maid explains the Devil King is the one who unites all devils through cruelty and brutality. The young man admits he's heard of devils but never the Devil King. The armored man adds the Devil King was so strong that humankind subconsciously sealed their memories of him to never relive the horror again. The maid says the fear is etched into the genes of all humankind. The young man nervously asks if his role is to defeat the Devil King. The armored man confirms, saying it must be done with the help of others. He reveals the only one who stands a chance against the Devil King is Kahaku, who can tame phantasmas. The young man's expression shifts to one of disbelief and pressure as the weight of his role sinks in. Kahaku appears in a glowing summoning circle, apologizing that he doesn't have much time left here. He explains he's in a temporary body and asks Ryugo to come to the Sword Village to make a contract with his real self. Ryugo, shocked, asks if he's serious. Kahaku promises he'll be waiting. Ryugo, startled by Kahaku's sudden appearance, apologizes for shouting and urges him to hurry. Kahaku smiles and tells him the time is moving. Ryugo admits he's never even heard of the Devil King. They stand silently before a massive sacred tree, while Kahaku wonders how to explain everything to Ryugo. Kahaku notices Ryugo's troubled expression and asks if something is on his mind. Ryugo nervously denies it. Kahaku suggests they visit Ryugo's birthplace. Ryugo agrees, expressing a desire to see the place where he used to live once more. They begin walking toward a distant village. Under the night sky, Kahaku asks Ryugo to join him on his journey. Ryugo smiles and agrees. The two walk together toward the village, the crescent moon shining above as the scene quiets down. Morning at the Fleur and Dining Hall finds Ryugo quietly poking at his meal, lost in thought about the Devil King's return and how only Kahaku can defeat him. A woman nearby gently chides Kahaku for worrying too much. Kahaku, accompanied by a large dog and a maid, jokes about blowing up the Devil King or removing his limbs, but Ryugo's mind is elsewhere, troubled. The maid notices his lack of appetite and asks if he's all right. Ryugo apologizes, admitting he's just tired. The maid brightens, eager to share some good news with him. The mood lightens as the maid encourages Ryugo to eat, saying good food cheers the tired spirit. Ryugo smiles gratefully as she offers him a bite. The maid praises her father's hamburgers as the best in the world, and Ryugo agrees they're delicious. She shares a saying about happiness lying in breakfast, attributing it to an old person. Ryugo asks who told her that, and she replies, "My mom." Kahaku, watching nearby, reflects quietly, feeling a bit left out. The maid suddenly insists she is not an old person, causing Ryugo to react in surprise. Another maid scolds her for teasing Kahaku. Ryugo is asked if he's feeling better after talking with Frederica-chan, and he nods. Though concern lingers about his health, the maid wishes him a nice day as she leaves, and Ryugo watches them go, still deep in thought. The maid questions if the young girl likes Kahaku, noting she's a cute girl from the same race. She warns Kahaku that the girl is just a child, but in 5 years, she could become a formidable force. The maid insists that love transcends sex, age, or race, emphasizing that the key is how much you love that person. Kahaku and the maid both confess their fondness for Ko, while he nervously admits he likes them all too. The maid informs Ryugo that the spice supply is about to run out. Even in storage, Ryugo offers to buy more, but the maid feels bad accepting. He insists, saying she has been kind to him and he wants to help. The maid admits she is busy today, but Ryugo's offer stands firm. Ryugo apologizes and asks if he can leave the task to the maid, suggesting she take Frederica as a guide. She agrees with a surprised but happy expression. Ryugo smiles warmly and encourages Frederica to come along, prompting her to respond with a shy but affirmative yes. Outside, the maid asks about the kinds of demons Ryugo has fought. He mentions a big spider about half the size of Fleur-In's, which they all managed to defeat thanks to everyone's help. The maid is surprised, and Ryugo explains it's because he is a tamer. They share a quiet moment as they walk, the maid looking thoughtful and Ryugo smiling gently. A cheerful girl eagerly asks where the familiar is. Catching everyone's attention, Ryugo hesitates, glancing at the group behind him. A woman conjures a small flame, admitting she'll have to help. Ryugo is introduced to Claire, Kahaku's familiar, through fiery letters that amaze Frederica. The maid explains that although they can't be seen, they can communicate through writing, which delights Frederica. Ryugo and the maid discuss how children are simple and easy to believe in. The conversation shifts to rumors about missing children, with some doubting the sudden disappearances. The maid reveals a disturbing connection to a cult called Gurenkai, which kidnaps and burns children as a ritual. She urges Ryugo to hurry with the spice shopping to avoid trouble for Frederica's parents. The group's grim discussion contrasts with Ryugo's attempt to keep things light for Frederica's sake. Ryugo arrives at a door labeled 205-2 and greets Sophia, who reports no matches found in her search for missing persons. She suspects Gurenkai's involvement. Ryugo listens intently as the maid confirms the dangerous cult may be behind the recent disappearances. Ryugo orders Sophia to find the current location of their enemies, vowing to crush them with his own hands. Sophia warns him to calm down, explaining that Gurenkai was nearly destroyed 3 years ago but managed to regroup and rebuild. She stresses their commitment to the organization, cautioning that they must take them all out at once or risk a prolonged cat-and-mouse chase. Ryugo agrees, understanding the severity of the threat. Sophia continues, warning that while it may seem easy to destroy Gurenkai, if even one member escapes, they could recreate the organization. She emphasizes the need to break this cycle to prevent future threats. The woman with long hair apologizes for getting carried away, and Ryugo suggests splitting into 2 groups to cover more ground. Ryugo instructs that he and Claire will inform the guild while Sophia and Fan track down the hideout. Sophia acknowledges the order. Ryugo encourages teamwork, confident they can succeed if they work together. The group prepares to move out, united in their mission. At the Tamer Guild, Ryugo apologizes for taking their time as he meets with a woman and a man. The woman asks what Ryugo would like to discuss, and he inquires about the current rumors in town. The woman mentions the most recent and troubling rumor about missing children, noting she has heard various rumors but none confirmed. He urgently asks how much is known about the disappearances. She calmly sips her tea, explaining the incidents happen once a month, 3 times so far, with random locations and no clues. She then confirms he has figured out the truth. He admits it with a serious expression. She reveals the culprit is Gurenkai, thought to have gone quiet 3 years ago but now active again with the same method. She says her familiars are tracking Yurenkai members. He thanks her for the rare information, usually reserved for platinum rank and above. She promises secrecy and hints there's more to share, pausing before continuing. She smiles warmly, teasing him about already knowing Yurenkai's secrets and asks who told him. He reacts awkwardly as she pats his head playfully. She quickly reassures him he doesn't have to answer, then requests the documents from a servant. She explains she trusts the person who confided in him enough to share this. Holding the documents, he learns all Yurenkai members only gather during rituals, so no children have been kidnapped this month. They must wait for the next kidnapping to strike all at once. He thanks her and asks if he can return after meeting his familiar. She agrees, emphasizing the guild has a right to know. He resolves to visit the battle guild together afterward. Ko returns home and is warmly greeted by his maid and familiar. The maid notes he has found the information they sought. They examine documents revealing Yurenkai's hideout, where 13 people, 9 men and 4 women, were present. All wore distinctive red robes, and confirms their identities by scent. Ko processes the details carefully. He thanks the maid and Fawn, promising to include the findings in his report. When asked about his next move, he states his plan to visit the battle guild with Tawa. The maid agrees this is wise, noting that sharing information about Yurenkai will strengthen their alliances. Ko feels encouraged by her support. The maid expresses understanding of Ko's feelings about being held sacred by others without consent. She urges him to act decisively to prevent the perpetrators from escaping justice. Ko and Fan resolve to avenge Zakis, their determination clear as they prepare to do their best. Ko then reminds the maid of one more important matter. The maid reveals her investigation shows that recent disappearances, including those 3 years ago, all occurred on nights of the new moon. Ko reacts with surprise, realizing the significance. Meanwhile, a man reads from a report, confirming the timing of the next new moon, setting the stage for their next move. The city basks under a vast sky filled with drifting clouds as a voice solemnly declares that in 3 days, the next event will unfold, drawing unexpectedly near. Ko enters the Battle Guild's guildmaster's room, where a woman sits and 2 men stand. He wonders about the guildmaster who ranks above Asura and his team. As he approaches, a man appears and apologizes for the wait. The man, Leon Leverard, the Battle Guildmaster, greets Tawa with a teasing remark about her heavy makeup hiding wrinkles. He asks if she's grown taller since they last met. Ko notices the tension between them and wonders if they are not getting along. The group exchanges playful insults about growth and priorities, revealing their strained relationship. The woman offers to comfort Ko if he wants. Leon points out that the person next to Tawa is Kahaku, whom Ko has been told about. The tension between them is palpable as they clearly do not get along. Leon confirms Ko is the phantasma Tamer Kahaku, who nervously affirms it. They stare at each other in silence until Ko's familiar steps forward, warning others to stay peaceful and forbidding anyone from harming Ko. Tawa questions the sudden interest, while Ko tries to keep the situation calm. One man tells another he has a good aura and the nobility of his soul. 2 women and a small familiar excitedly affirm, he is a good person with a good eye for people. The man quietly contemplates this peaceful moment. 2 men discuss the presence of 3 others, with one unable to see them but feeling their incredibly strong presence. The other confirms he cannot see them either but senses them clearly. The first man is amazed no one had detected their presence until now, calling out the name Leon. A woman with long hair asks them to stop ogling their hunter, teasing that she thought he would become a coward but was proven wrong. The man smiles confidently. Another man encourages her to explain her reason for coming, and the group listens attentively. The woman reveals they are discussing the location of Yurenkai, who fled 3 years ago. She mentions Kahaku-san investigated it, and the man expresses certainty in that. They wonder if another move is being made since things have been quiet since the incident. The man asks Kahaku to tell him more about it, and Kahaku responds affirmatively. The young man carefully reads through documents, absorbing the information. He responds with a calm very well to an unseen figure. His face brightens with relief and joy as the other affirms, I believe your story. Teasingly, the young man asks if he is really that happy about the belief, pointing out the smile spreading across his face. The other denies it nervously, but the mood lightens with a quiet, it's okay. The young man is taken aback as the other reveals he has heard much about him from Asura, and will trust him as well. Shock and disbelief flicker across his face as he wonders if Asura truly believes in him. With renewed determination, he rallies everyone, declaring this a battle to avenge Zakis. The young man vows to ensure Yurenkai's destruction this time, his resolve firm. The group listens intently, including a silver-haired man, a bespectacled man, and a muscular bald fighter. The young man reflects on the legendary mithril rank Tamers, admitting he has yet to meet one. A woman announces that the Tamers Guild will also send 2 mithril members to join the effort. The young man warns that bringing too many people risks exposure. He counts 8 in total, including 2 mithril ranks from the Tamer's Guild, who will handle the mission. A bespectacled man requests a word with the young man, who listens thoughtfully as the man explains the need for a plan to capture the kidnappers without harming the children. They know the kidnappers will abduct a child in 3 days to perform a ritual, and careful strategy is required. The young man proposes spreading the rumor of the disappearances more widely to discourage people from going out after dusk. Aiming to ensure the children's safety, a woman listens intently as he adds, and then, he explains that this will reduce the chance of children being harmed. He instructs Tawa to spread the rumor to the Tamer's Guild as well, emphasizing the importance of caution. The woman suddenly starts to laugh, struggling to contain herself as she tries to say she understands. The young man's expression tightens in frustration. While a small chibi figure of a man warns him to calm down, the group confirms the timeline. The kidnappers will act in 3 days. They prepare to leave, with the woman addressing the young man as Kahakukuin. The group of 3, including the armored man, the bespectacled man, and the bald fighter, resolve to do their best. The young man and the woman exchange determined looks before the scene shifts to a peaceful townscape, affirming their commitment. Evening falls in the Tamer's Guild guildmaster's room, where the young man rubs the back of his head, lamenting the persistence of troublesome people. A stern woman in uniform scolds him for his sluggishness, demanding he sit and focus. The young man nervously tries to deflect her anger, while a large lion-like familiar stands nearby. The woman's playful threat to castrate him contrasts with her cute expression, and the young man realizes these two are mithril-ranked members of the Tamer's Guild. A woman remarks that Kahaku's expression is nothing like what she imagined. Surprising him, she asks if he is the Phantasma Tamer, and he confirms his name with a bright smile. Another man studies Kahaku thoughtfully, noting his nice face and calling him the Divine Wolf Fenrir. The large wolf familiar stands proudly as Kahaku explains that it's an honor to work with the legendary Moon Eater. He admits he can't see the Moon Eater himself but knows of him through his black lion familiars. A small familiar teases Kahaku about Fenrir's fame. The woman praises Kahaku's talent in taming the primordial flame. While a small fairy floats nearby, Kahaku reflects on Claire's reputation and considers learning more about Phantasma after they return. Claire insists on a casual tone. Bowing with the others, the woman then signals the end of introductions. The woman announces their mission to exterminate the Girenkai in 3 days. Kahaku clenches his fist, asking for Dakasan's watchful support. His determined gaze reveals his resolve to finish the task once and for all. 3 days later, on a new moon evening, the town feels unusually empty. 2 hooded figures note the strange lack of people, suspecting it's due to rumors warning residents not to go out at night. They worry this silence will disrupt their ritual. One of them reveals a calm, determined expression beneath his hood. The taller hooded figure admits he'd usually prefer a well-dressed child but insists they must do what's necessary. They decide to kidnap an orphan. Eyeing a secluded area with a small shack, nearby, a cloaked figure quietly prepares a sack, unaware of the looming threat. One of the hooded figures silently approaches the cloaked orphan, ready to strike. The night sky darkens as tension builds. After the attack, the kidnappers check if the victim is alive, confirming they held back enough not to kill him. They resolve to hurry and reach the ritual on time. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the protagonists riding on the large white wolf Fenrir under the night sky. The group, including the Moon Eater and his companions, stands ready and determined, signaling the start of their mission to confront the looming threat. The 2 from the Crimson Lotus Society enter the ruined mansion, confirming it as the correct location. The large white wolf descends from above. A woman and a soldier await, discussing Kahaku's whereabouts. The soldier notes someone is coming down, and a figure approaches, apologizing for the delay. The group surveys the mansion and its occupants, noting 43 people inside, each armed with a magic weapon. They remain still, likely preparing a ritual. The woman and soldier agree to proceed as planned. Kahaku is praised for his impressive reconnaissance, and he resolves to begin the operation. Kahaku is instructed to gather detailed information and report back by day's end. So roles can be assigned. Though tense, he accepts the responsibility with determination. The scene shifts to an aerial view of the mansion's courtyard, where the ritual is set to unfold. Inside the mansion, robed figures chant, invoking the great fire spirit and offering sacrifices to create a utopia by spilling blood. One cultist sneers at their enemies as the fire ignites. But the ritual is suddenly interrupted by an unexpected event, causing alarm and confusion among the cultists. A hooded figure condemns the cultists as the lowest of the low. Expressing disgust, a man reacts in shock, recognizing the figure's crimson eyes, pitch-black hair, and childlike physique. The figure stands confidently, gripping a staff, confirming the impossible. The man identifies the newcomer as the hero, Leon reveled, holding a staff. The cultists whisper in disbelief, questioning how he found them and if he is truly the guild master of the battle guild. Leon calmly states he has a talented kid on his side, while a cultist doubts the plan. Leon faces the cultists with a confident smile, pointing out that although he is alone, they are 43 strong. He challenges their assumption of his disadvantage, asserting he is no fool. The cultists exchange uneasy glances, unsettled by his confidence. Leon announces that the formation to prevent any escape is already complete, though he admits it might be overkill. Shadows of a dragon and other figures loom above as the cultists look on in surprise and concern. One cultist sweats nervously while Leon's presence dominates the scene. The hooded figure explains that the dragon handler is the guild master of the Tamer guild, known as the tyrant Tawa Altheim. He reveals that the two figures below her are the Beast King, Xania Erkline, and the indomitable, Karon Sambart. The figure continues, naming the three in the back as the Demon Fist, Roan Barrett, the Magic Archive, Sior Magicalia, and the Swords Prodigy, Ashua Kreutz. He notes that 7 of them are mithril rank or higher, and the other hooded man accepts the situation with a resigned expression. Suddenly, a cultist shouts that an invisible wall blocks their escape through the windows. Panic spreads as they realize they can't get near the windows. The hooded figure reveals the defensive shield is technology from thousands of years in the future. Leon and the cloaked figure stand confidently, with Leon noting the cultists won't be able to destroy the shield at their current level. Leon and the cloaked figure reveal themselves, with the cloaked man asking who Leon is. Leon explains the power they are witnessing is science known as hyperoptical camouflage, capable of erasing one's form and presence. He expresses his admiration for the technology as they prepare to confront the cultists. The hooded figure questions if the swordsman's power is an enchantment, noting the atmosphere feels different. The swordsman confirms this, confident he can protect himself. The hooded man notices a Tamer guild plate and wonders if the swordsman used a monster's power. Questioning when that happened, the swordsman asks where the monster is in the first place, and the hooded man, cloaked in flames, remains silent. The swordsman expresses relief at this. Suddenly, a fiery mark shoots forward from the hooded man toward the group. The swordsman reacts with surprise. Realizing his familiar Claire caused the attack, cultists panic, shocked by a forced cancellation of magic while the magic archive remains unmoved. The hooded man calmly focuses, confirming he is doing something significant. The hooded man commands everyone to take up their weapons. The cultists prepare to attack, with one ordering to kill the swordsman maintaining the invisible barrier. Others are told to overwhelm the rest with superior numbers. The swordsman and another stand ready, aware he is the one sustaining the barrier. The swordsman instructs Kahaku to support everyone and watch their movements closely. Kahaku affirms, and the group braces as the cultists charge forward, weapons drawn, ready to engage in battle. The swordsman declares that combat has begun. Cultists react in shock as one is swiftly cut down with a single swing. The battle erupts instantly, with a blur of motion as the swordsman launches forward, striking another enemy with a powerful kick. The muscular fighter clad in flames is revealed to be receiving an enchantment from the magic archive, bolstering his power. The cultists, undeterred, prepare to join the fight. The swordsman analyzes the enemy's movements, noting many are gold rank with some nearing platinum. He quietly commands to go, signaling the start of their counterattack. The battle intensifies as the woman in the military uniform scolds Xania for charging prematurely, reminding him they were supposed to attack simultaneously. She orders her comrades Air, Animos, and Leaf to trample the enemies, urging them not to fall behind. The swordsman and another soldier sit back, irritated by being called mere beasts. But ready to fight, the cultists rally, determined to crush the magic archive first with overwhelming force. Suddenly, massive crystal-like barriers erupt around the cultists, trapping them inside. The swordsman realizes the magic is not chantless, despite appearances. As the cultists struggle within the crystalline prison, the tension rises as the battle turns to a desperate fight against this unexpected magical defense. A man explains that his magic staff can store magic and activates faster than chantless casting. He praises the fighters, saying everyone is doing great. Another commands Ashua to show her Sword Saint's blessing skill. A hooded man reacts in shock, questioning the skill's presence. The hooded cultists declare the Sword Saint's blessing is a unique skill granted only to swordsmen of the Turquoise Kingdom. Expressing disbelief that the man possesses it, the man calmly states no one knows why, but he has it and won't lose it. The cultists are warned to focus on protecting themselves. The man reveals he can't hold back when using the skill. He unleashes a powerful attack, breaking the floor beneath a cultist's feet. The cultists react with alarm as the attack lands. The man continues his fierce assault, slashing through the cultists' ranks with swift, precise strikes. The cultists are thrown back, some wounded and shocked. One cultist gasps in surprise while the man calmly sheathes his sword, standing ready for the next move. The young man stands frozen, sweat dripping down his face as chaos erupts around him. Hooded cultists scream in terror, engulfed by a sudden burst of flames that scorch the ground beneath them. A bloodied figure, clutching a sword with a steady hand despite a severe head wound, emits a sharp beep, signaling something crucial. The young man's wide eyes reveal his shock and relief as he silently acknowledges, "I'm glad they're on our side." A fierce battle rages as a swordsman and a magic user unleash powerful attacks, overwhelming the cultists. The young man watches in awe, overwhelmed by the strength around him. He notes with growing dread that only 8 enemies remain. A desperate cultist pleads for help, trembling with fear as a hooded figure approaches calmly. The cultist fears the situation is worsening rapidly. The hooded figure's presence commands attention, hinting at a turning point. The young man observes the hooded figure's calm demeanor amid chaos. Suspecting he hides a secret, the figure's composed stance contrasts sharply with the tension, deepening the mystery. The young man's suspicion grows as he watches closely. The hooded figure admits he's not exactly hiding something, but something else entirely. He acknowledges the time has come to act. The young man questions the magic weapon called Sphere, crafted 300 years ago. As the cultists cautiously advance, the figure grips a dark, smoking sword, signaling a significant shift about to unfold. A hooded figure reveals a cursed magic sword called the Soul Eater, which seals the souls of those it cuts into its blade. The sword converts their mana to sharpen itself but also awakens madness in its wielder. The young man reacts in shock, questioning what happens if someone is sealed, before screaming in terror. The hooded figure suddenly stabs a cultist in the chest, causing him to cough up blood. Another cultist shouts in alarm, demanding the master stop. But the attack continues. Nearby, 2 others watch in stunned silence, their expressions filled with shock and fear. One cultist chokes violently, blood pouring from his mouth, while a woman pleads desperately for the master to stop. The young man warns Tawa that the situation feels dangerous. A graceful woman floats nearby, agreeing with his concern, while the young man looks on, tense and uncertain. The young man commands Noir and Nero to return, and Caron Sambart orders Air and the others to come back as well. The young man's expression shifts to disbelief as he doubts Tawa's involvement. Tawa smiles gently and winks, leaving the young man bewildered by her calm demeanor amid the chaos. The young man shouts urgently that the dragon's attack is Kurish's breath and orders Claire to raise a protective barrier for everyone. Claire responds immediately, lifting her hands to cast the shield. He calls out to Leon to come over, grabbing his arm to guide him, while a beast warns everyone to stay put and not move from their spots. Kurish unleashes a massive fiery breath, engulfing the area in flames and destruction. The barrier shimmers as it holds against the overwhelming heat and power, protecting those inside. Leaf, Tawa, and the young man stand firm behind the shield, watching the attack with focused determination. The young man notes that the barrier is exactly as he heard about, and he senses Kurish's breath has grown stronger since before. Kahaku's power is praised for blocking the attack, but the young man laments the destruction of the Crimson Society's bodies. Flames and smoke rise around them, the barrier holding steady despite the devastation. The young man calls out anxiously to Tawa, demanding an explanation. Tawa, calm and smiling, tells him not to be mad, saying she thought it would be fine since Kahaku was present. The young man insists she should have consulted them beforehand. Kahaku silently acknowledges the tension, ready to speak up as the young man looks on with a mix of surprise and concern. A thick cloud of smoke and dust rises, obscuring the aftermath of the fiery attack. A young woman urgently calls out to Kahaku, pointing at something unexpected. The young man turns, puzzled, as a hooded figure emerges silently from the smoke, unscathed and ominous. The young man questions how the hooded figure could survive such a devastating breath. The figure responds with a sinister chuckle, standing confidently as the ruined surroundings settle. The hooded figure raises his arms, proclaiming the guidance of the great fire spirit. The spirit, appearing unimpressed and annoyed, denies any involvement. The hooded figure begins a chant, invoking the mighty spirit who governs the great flames, signaling a critical moment is at hand. A man with a wild grin calls out for the ultimate devotion to be received, unsettling the nearby woman who protests. The man orders Asura to finish off the young man, who readies a binding curse in defense, eyes wide with urgency. A sharp realization hits as a man silently stabs himself in the neck, blood dripping from the wound. Another figure rushes forward, sword drawn, but the man collapses, coughing violently as dark tendrils begin to emerge from his body. The group watches in shock, questioning why he would stab himself. They notice something ominous seeping out of him, and a woman admits the situation looks dire. The smoke and dark energy around the man intensify, signaling a dangerous transformation. The tension rises as the group wonders if the presence emerging is what they feared. A dog-like companion confirms it is the sealed fourth race spoken of by the sword god Raiga. The revelation shocks everyone, especially as the dark mass writhes on the ground. A solemn voice explains that the entity is not the fire spirit worshipped by the Crimson Society, but a far worse race that posed as the fire spirit to demand sacrifices and weaken its own seal. The image of the man's body pierced by a sword is shown as the truth sinks in. A woman solemnly declares that the demon race is being revived. The statement shocks the group, with one man reacting in disbelief and another questioning the reality of the demon race's return. A dark, ominous aura rises as a towering figure with horns and long hair emerges, surrounded by twisting black tendrils, signaling the terrifying resurgence of the demon race.